Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centrist Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. DB, what's up, bud?
What's up?
Oh, you got any questions for Coach Rhule?
No, I don't. He does seem a little off to me.
In what sense?
I don't know. Did he seem like his normal self yesterday?
Man, that's a great question.
So that's kind of tricky, right? Because we had kind of prepped ourselves to be for him to be almost more than that in terms of sort of shut off and guarded. And I didn't think he was as much as I was expecting.
Yeah, he does. I think he definitely comes across as though he does not enjoy talking to us anymore.
Yeah, and maybe it's just the day. I don't know.
And it's the time of year. I think this is his favorite time of year.
Sure, because it's like the very footballiest time of year.
And he's got to teach. And I think he did say something that I thought was very interesting. And cue Amazing Daniel, because he'll say something like, "Oh, we analyze everything." He probably doesn't say it in that voice. He sings
Probably
it in
not.
that like smoky whiskey guitar strumming, long hair, motorcycle riding voice.
He got cracked on a run play.
Whatever all that is. Where he was comparing the players knowing what's going on in the protocol and kind of not really skipping a beat versus so many new coaches.
Yeah.
And I think I go back to, and this was a hypothesis, because sometimes I know and I'll think through it out loud, but this is just like a theory where because he likes to teach and coach so much, I imagine this offseason getting to know his coaches and instilling what he wants in year 3 with new guys is I don't know. Exhilarating may be too strong of a word, but I think
like invigorating.
I think he enjoys the challenge because he understands that this is a little less conventional than he's done some other year 3s.
Sure.
Right? He's done year 3s kind of with like the build, and this time, I mean, he had to swap out a good chunk of his staff. So that you have to have some anxiety.
Sure. Yeah. You're like, this formula that I knew that worked.
He has to have some anxiety.
It's a little different.
So I think I hear a little bit of that, but I don't want to go all.
So you know what I thought it was?
Dr. Zhivago.
I thought
that was the animal guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't like Dr. Phil. I just need a regular shrink. Fraser, he's definitely not regular. Let's go Gideon.
Have you watched Shrinking on Apple TV?
No, Profiler.
Yeah.
We're going Criminal Minds.
Little psychological profiler.
Gideon.
Good old Mandy Patinkin.
Yep. Panda Kankin. That's what I used to say.
I don't think that's
Between he and D'Onofrio.
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Okay, whatever. Are two guys that I have a really
that you really like.
That I just hammer their last names. So it's Patantakantian and D'Onofrio.
Have you seen Princess Bride?
Is that with Andre the Giant?
Yeah.
Incorrect.
You haven't?
No.
Okay. Well, because he's in that one, but he looks very different.
Yeah, I'm not sitting through that as a child.
30 years younger or whatever.
Although, was I a child?
Yes. Yeah, because it came out 80s.
Yeah, I wasn't watching that.
All right, fair enough. I didn't see it till I was in high school.
That was like with Zorro and all that other stuff.
Not a big Zorro guy?
I like Zorro before it got brought to the cinema. Like, not cinema, because I'm watching it on television.
Right.
I meant like the movie screen.
Yeah. That's cinema's movies as opposed to TV.
Yeah. TV Zorro was fine.
Yeah. You go with Zorro?
He wasn't like I like
not a big Ranger. Antonio Banderas guy?
No, actually I'm not at all.
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember anything he did that I liked.
I liked Catherine Zeta-Jones in that one.
You know what? Defies my norm.
Assassins was a good movie.
I didn't sit through that. Was that with Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch that all the way through either.
Yeah?
I'm not. I was never is it Zeta or Zeta?
Zeta.
Out.
Like ziti, like pasta?
Out on that too. Yeah, I was not a Catherine person. My taste was vastly different as a child.
So you know what? Well, most of us are. A little different. Go from like Lucky Charms to biscuits and gravy. It's a little different.
Out on biscuits and gravy too.
Not a big Lucky Charms guy either.
I don't eat cereal, but I would eat.
You like cereal though?
I do. I love cereal. I love cereal.
Yeah. What was your go-to?
When I was a kid.
Yeah.
I mean, a treat would have been like honeycombs.
Yeah.
Or waffle crisp. I mean, we were a Kix, Crispix.
Kix is kind of underrated. I liked Kix.
Kix sucks.
Really? I like
First thing I did when I started being gainfully employed is get all the flavored cereal I wanted.
Fruit Loops, baby.
Yeah.
I love Fruit Loops.
So Fruit Loops was a treat.
Oh, yeah. Those are.
But then sometimes we would go to these other grocery stores and we would get it out of a bag and not the box.
Yeah,
sometimes it was Fruit Loops. Sometimes it was like O-rings.
Yeah, like Fruity Rings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I was a big Golden Grams guy, too.
Yeah, I didn't. So Golden Grams was probably for me more high school, college.
Yeah, I love Golden Grams.
Certainly not when I was a kid. Dig 'em Smacks, that's with the frog, right?
Yeah, I didn't ever have those.
I had the little singing bear with the little Teddy Pendergrass voice.
Okay.
You know what? What was the bear's name, Shane? The little dude that wore the blue mock turtleneck?
Paddington.
Paddington.
Not Pennington.
And by the way, Jason.
The cereal dude. The cereal bear.
Oh, I don't know.
Am I the... There's a cereal bear.
I'm going to Google.
By the way, Jason in the stream likes Puss in Boots for an Antonio.
Oh, for Antonio Banderas.
Yeah.
He's just the voice actor there.
Yeah, I watch a lot of Shrek.
Yeah.
I like...
So you like Shrek? So that's a Antonio Banderas vehicle?
Yeah, but I'm not vibing with that dude. I don't even really like Puss in Boots' character. He's fine.
Yeah.
He didn't need his own movie.
No, he's funny in like his little bit parts. The whole movie's a lot.
I sat through that too.
We're doing a lot. Well, I'm sure you did. Like if Zoe's that into Shrek, I'm sure you had to sit through.
No, she wasn't riding with Puss.
Really?
I think that might have been. Man, this is sad. It might have been just me. Because Caleb's too old, and Breeze wasn't. He didn't.
That could have been. It's the Golden Crisp Sugar Bear.
Yes.
I found him for you.
And he had like this.
Yeah, he's got the sweater. He's got the whole thing.
Believe me, that dude was like a little crooner. He had this like cool little voice. And he's like, can't get enough of
enough of that sugar crisp.
And I was like, why is this dude need like goldfish boots? He just gave me like.
He was a G.
Yeah, he was. He just gave me like. I don't know, like. He just gave me weird vibes.
It's like, hey, you quit singing like that? Knock it off.
Right. Should have been on Soul Trains.
It's breakfast. We don't need to be this romantic.
And the one with the little frog. So we rock with those.
The Smack'ems. That was the little frog.
We used to rock those sometimes.
So you know why I think Rhule was a little off?
Why?
I think he was mad at us.
Why?
He slapped our hand a little bit. Not us.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes,
on the Raiola thing.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And it was. You know what's funny?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I like when we don't get verification, but we just try to put clues together because it's easy to kind of text or pick up the phone and ask, but that doesn't lend itself to credibility, and it gets annoying, and eventually we're probably not going to be who he thinks we are.
Yeah.
Right? Individual free thinkers. But we walk through that exact scenario, and I even made fun of, like, if he doesn't give away, what if he said 228? What if he said 240? Like. We went through.
Yeah. What if he said 260 or 230?
We took it. Yeah. I'm like, this is incredible because you brought it to my attention because I had moved on.
Yeah, because you didn't realize people were doing.
And
this.
I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, people made a big deal about it.
And you're like, hey, we're gonna take a break. And I come back to something that's kind of bugging me a little bit. And I was like,
yeah,
huh?
And I almost laid out the exact scenario that he said. Right?
Did he say disappointed?
I don't remember if he said disappointed or frustrated, but he goes
some of you guys.
Yeah.
Like that was, he might have said disappointed.
I think he did. He was like, I was really disappointed with how that was handled. Because he
and then he went into his own delivery.
Yeah.
I pretty measured, like I know what I want to say.
He said, I'm pretty specific. He said, I'm pretty specific in what I say. And we went through this whole scenario where we said, hey, like, I don't know if he meant.
I told you yesterday we were going to do this with him.
Yeah. And I go, I don't know if.
And I feel like we're giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, so he kind of told us yesterday hey, I say things in a specific way for a specific reason. So take me at what I say, right? So I think that sort of gives us permission to be pretty black and white with the things he tells us, right? Like, that's how I took it is, hey, I specifically say things, like you said, I'm intentional about the way I say things, right?
Yeah.
So that kind of gives us permission to say, hey, if he says this, this is what he means. Now, I do think there's a disconnect here, too. And we got this, I got into this in the stream a little bit yesterday. I don't think it actually made it on air.
Islands in the stream.
That is what we are. Sail away with me. No, anyway. We got into it in the stream a little bit yesterday where people will take something he says and assume it means something else, like with the 240, right? We assumed when he said he can't be a great quarterback, or he knows he can't be a great quarterback at 240, that meant he weighed 240 pounds. That's not what he said.
Yeah.
He said Dylan knows he can't be a great quarterback at 240, which for a guy that comes from a stock of offensive linemen, I imagine being at a proper weight is something that's harder for him than somebody that comes from a bunch of string bean families, right? Like, that's just like for some guys, it's hard to put on weight.
What is in the string bean family?
Mostly green beans.
Other legumes?
Yeah, like legumes. Uruguay. But somebody brought up like how last year he goes, oh, well, he talked about how good the roster was last year. It's like, okay, good roster. You like this team. Doesn't always equate to wins the way you want it to, right? What did we talk about yesterday? How this team probably underachieved a little bit. Probably should have had 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah.
That's a good roster.
That was Mike J, right?
Yeah, Mike said and then we kind of ran with it a little bit, talking about the field goal kicking versus the converting in red zones, right?
Yeah, which, by the way, I'm literally talking about another 2.8 points in the red zone.
Yeah, we said somewhere between 2.5 and 3, right? 2.8, right on the money.
Yeah.
And that turns you into a 9-win team or an 8-win team?
And I didn't go full-fledged nerd because I showed you Zoe just filling up the Tupperware bowl with dirty Kleenex.
Yeah.
It was.
What did I say to you? Ugh.
It's really testing the love of my own child. I mean, really took me there. I'm like, God, I love you and you're a cutie pie, but this is
just gross.
Gross.
Yeah.
But I hung in there like a
champ.
Believe me. Well, fudge. If I was the mom, I would be getting flowers. But if I'm the dad, it's like, well, that's what you're supposed to do. Anyway, it just went down the rabbit hole of watching some of these games and some of these drives. And it's not near as bad as year one, but I allowed myself.
Year one would drive you crazy. But
I was allowing myself to say, man, just get points here.
Yep.
Just get points right here.
Any points at all.
And you're good.
Yeah.
And it was just like they just couldn't
do it.
Couldn't do it.
Couldn't trust themselves to even attempt the
You
kicks.
know what was spot on, though, that I was like, damn, of all the back and forth yesterday, a salient point. The field goals they didn't attempt due to lack of confidence.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I can't prove it, even though I'm right there real time.
Yeah.
I can't prove it, but I wonder how it changed the play calling.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
It had to.
You can see it.
But it's like, it's fourth and 11, and you're on the 38-yard line.
Yeah, you can't attempt a 55-yarder.
Or the 34-yard line.
Yeah. And you saw it on third down too, right? Because they get to, let's say, 3rd and 7. Normally, you're like, hey, this is a passing down. We're at the 30-yard line. We can attempt a 47-yard field goal. Not a big deal, right? But on 3rd and 7, now all of a sudden, they're running to try and pick up 3 yards to make it 4th and manageable because they don't want to be in a 4th and 7. And then they get stuffed on 3rd down, and now it's 4th and 8 from the 31. And you're
or just simply you make the field goal late in Iowa City.
Yeah, we're not having these conversations.
It's just like, but anyway. So when I'm listening to him, I don't know. I think I'm like, let's get him out of here. Right? Just get because it was kind of long.
About 20 minutes, 22 minutes.
Which I thought that was long.
I mean, for him in context, like he'll go 40 sometimes.
Well, he has something to talk about.
Sure.
We don't know anything.
No, we don't, but there is there was pro day. He talked about pro day for a little bit. Like there was some things to talk about. I thought 20 was about what I was expecting, honestly.
All right. Well,
it was
Ravi here for being smarter than his partner.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but sometimes I get it right. It's usually just blindfolded, thrown at a dartboard, but every once in a while.
That's all of us.
But no, I thought I did think it was interesting, his tone, and I thought it was very telling that he went back and got the Raiola weight comment.
Yeah, it was.
Because you could tell it was sitting with him.
And did he get us again? Maybe.
That was the big one. That was definitely the big one.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, I'm sure it wasn't because we know Mitch well enough and we'll talk to him later today. It almost seemed like it was a planted question of like he wanted to talk about this. I'm sure he would have found a way to talk about what he wanted to no matter what. And again, I'm pretty sure Mitch would never do this. But the fact that he's like, hey, I noticed Dylan looking like he started making progress towards some of these fitness goals that we've been talking about here.
Well, we'll ask him.
Yeah. Like, I don't think he's a guy that would like plan a question.
But then again, it doesn't seem like that's the first thing that Mitch would say either.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Of all the things, although maybe they just saw him in passing.
Although when we talked to Mitch right after this, he did sort of ask us. He's like, I don't really know if that's what he meant. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, we did have a good. Yeah, I like that. That was a good segment that was a good.
So it sort of felt organic to me that we, because he was already thinking about it in a way sort of differently than a lot of people were talking about it.
And for context, remember, Mitch has, I think, some unique insights to the family, right?
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
He went there and did the piece.
Yeah.
So there's a different level of connection there.
Yeah.
Which I can, you appreciate.
That's fair.
I did like the fact I took no victory laps.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes I have to take them in an agonies of defeat too. So I'm very selective of when I bring things up. I'm like, ooh, don't forget I was wrong about that. Let's not bring that up.
Yeah, you just got to be like me and ignore the misses.
Yeah, I got it. Had to eat it. But I did like how he went deep for him this early in the spring on the running backs.
Yeah.
That's about as much as you're going to get.
Give a lot of detail.
When you get individual detail on guys.
Yeah.
And I remember, so there's two things.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I definitely want to be right on Mekhi Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
So make no mistake about that. But number two, remember when I said we were getting ready for the bowl game and just like bowl preps, and I'm like, man.
Quentin.
You remember.
Yeah, Quentin Ives. Yeah. You're like, man, he looks pretty good.
I'm like, the last, I don't know, couple of games of the season, it just seemed like he was, and I said, this is a term I like to use. He's just seeing it better.
Yeah. I think I said is it slowing down for him a little bit?
Yeah. And I got the whole, I've seen enough of this guy. And I'm like, you guys.
We haven't seen hardly any of this
These guys are just
You know what I mean?
These guys are just getting started. But we're always clamoring for something so new.
Yeah.
That sometimes it could be like an Emma Johnson where it's right in front of us. It just needs some opportunities. So the level of excitement he had for that room, I feel like was it, I don't know, refreshing. Is interesting to say the least.
Yeah. The other thing that
he just doesn't get like that.
The other thing I thought was interesting was didn't really push back on EJ as the one.
No.
Because that was the context of the question.
Yeah.
And usually he'll be like, well, I mean, we got a lot of good guys in that room or whatever. Didn't really push back on EJ as the one.
Yeah. And I can't remember. Was that BC's question? Because he might, in the question, he might have said RB2 as if to.
Well, he said guys behind Emmett.
Yeah, same difference.
Yeah. But he usually in that situation, I mean, last year when we were talking about.
He would have stopped it.
Like when we were talking about Dylan, right? He'd be like, well, hey, we got 3 quarterbacks we think we can play and whatever. And
good point.
So I thought it was interesting and pretty telling that he, especially considering our conversation yesterday, where I was trying to decide whether or not EJ was one of our guaranteed starters, whether I thought it was interesting that he didn't take a minute to be like, well, we've got a really good room. I like all of these guys, Emmett. So part of me wonders if that's more decided than I thought, or more clear cut.
Yeah.
Decided's probably not the right word, but more clear cut than maybe I was giving it credit for.
And so I was kind of vibing with that, but I want to just watch and learn and see how it's how it unfolds with the staff.
Can I ask another Emma Johnson question real quick?
Yeah, ask all you want.
So that's a guy that we've talked about doesn't need a babysitter, right? Like
100%.
Gonna stay on it, gonna do what you need him to do no matter what. So I wonder, because I think we forget he briefly announced his intention to transfer in the offseason, right?
Yes, he did.
And then pulled his name back. He never actually entered the portal because he made his announcement before it was open and then pulled back before it was open.
Yeah.
So I do wonder, for a guy that doesn't need a babysitter, if that's a guy, I don't want to say guarantees, but if that's a guy you can give some assurances to, where you can say, hey, you're going to get your opportunity. I can promise you that. Like, keep doing the things we need you to do. Like, you're going to get as good of an opportunity here as you will anywhere else. Not guaranteeing jobs or anything, but I wonder if that's a guy you can say that to, because you know it's not going to affect how he prepares.
Yeah, and he answered.
And that would impact how he answered the question yesterday.
Yeah, he answered my rigor question on Mackay, too. What I say yesterday about Mackay?
He's got to be able to withstand sort of the everyday rigor.
I say he's a dynamic runner, and if he can handle the day-to-day rigor, color me curious.
Could be really good.
And he said, did he say fiercely competitive?
Yeah, I think so.
And I'm just saying, I know I'm gonna you're reading it. For an ultra competitive guy like Coach Rhule to say a guy is fiercely competitive,
yeah.
He's competitive.
Well, it's the same thing we saw with Fedoni, right? He made a similar comment about Fedoni last year, 2 years ago, where he's like, hey, like he reminds me a lot of me. He's a fiercely competitive guy. I think he may have actually said fiercely competitive about Fedoni as well.
Yeah.
Like, so that I do think that is sort of an extra compliment coming from Rhule, who kind of stays on it a little bit.
I just looked at the new guys, and there aren't. I think we overdid it a little, but we've kind of been saying that with the transfer, and I think we're trying to paint this narrative that he's not into development.
Yeah.
So we've been on this for a couple months, but I do think there's significantly more new staff than there are new players,
percentage-wise, certainly.
So it's like,
yeah,
even volume. What do they got? 16 new guys? I bet you they have 16 new staff.
Plus freshmen.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about staff as a whole, yeah. You're probably right. You're probably right.
And
in terms of people,
and I'm just saying that's not easy when you got to hit the ground running and be on the same page. And remember, half those guys are recruiting.
Yeah, so they're not all in the office very often at the same time.
So you need some time. And I would guess, I don't know, like the inning outs of how he wants to do work, but he had to give him a little time off.
At some point, you would think,
right?
Maybe like an afternoon.
Hey guys, it's like we were at a place we were at an establishment a handful of weeks ago, and it's a neighborhood deal where my mom lives, and they have really good food. So I hadn't been in there in probably 6-7 years. No, whenever Creed came out, the first Creed.
That's like 2018?
That was the last time I was in there. So maybe that's
2018, right. Somewhere in there?
Same waitress. Same bartender.
Yeah.
I'm dead dog serious. And she is
2015.
She's a big DB fan.
Yeah.
So got hit with the first and last name. And there's only 5 people in there, right? It's like Damon, Benny. And so later on, she comes over and she said, hey, want to get you a drink. But I'm a super cheap ass, so you're going to drink what I can afford.
Shane thought that was funny.
And you're talking to the guy that only drinks 2 things, right?
Yeah.
You know what she brought out?
What?
Fireball.
Ugh.
And I didn't want to be that dude.
Yeah.
So gladly I was like,
thank you.
Cheers.
A little bit of that W,
Which brings me to the point of
familiarity.
Yeah, just it's like, oh, we're back. Because there's some comfort in that.
Yeah.
But then when it's different, you have to take some time.
Yeah. Kind of get your arms around it a little bit.
And it's like the person, when he says give you an afternoon off or a night, it's like the person that says, here, first round's on me, but you guys can only have Busch Lights. You know what I mean? Or something like that.
Only Keystones.
Hey, you guys have worked your tail off, man. I appreciate what you do. Take the rest of the afternoon off. Come back at 8 tonight. Be like, thanks, Coach.
First round's on me, well only.
But I don't want to drink McCormick's.
Oh, my God. It's Barton's.
Listen, if it comes in a plastic bottle, I'm out. That's what you sound like when you drink that stuff. It's like burning your esophagus.
Oh, man. It's been a morning for you, boy. If loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. It was cool. And I liked listening to the guys, too. I think they're chomping at the bit. It is going to be – the other thing, I don't know what this is going to look like because he got me confused, and then he went back – but he said, hey, you know what? I want to just be able to play a couple of defenses that are portable that we can play anytime. But then he talked about moving a guy like Singleton around to be able to be multiple to play to his strengths and get him down into the box. So I think or to take advantage of his skill sets, which that's code for you probably want to
protect him a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they told me two things.
They're aware of his shortcomings.
Number one.
Yeah. Which is important.
Number one.
Because there was times last year I was not sure they were.
Yeah, number one. And then like the ability to, like, what do you want to do defensively? He almost got into the scheme thing.
Yeah.
But then he cut himself off, and I was just salivating. I was like, let's go.
You're like, do it. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Do it.
Get a roar. Get a roar. Again, another Shrek. I've been Shrek in 2 weeks, and that's all I can think about.
There was one other thing that he talked about yesterday that I want to get to when we come back here, because I think it goes into some of our other categories that we didn't get to yesterday.
Get a roar.
Do it. I'm doing a Star Wars thing. I don't know what you're doing.
Shrek. Little mean-spirited kid.
He had a comment yesterday that I thought was really interesting, and we've got some more categories I want to get to. I think they kind of mesh together pretty well. We'll get to that coming up next year. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. It's Hurrdat Sports Live. Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, reminding you to fasten that seatbelt as you're on your way to work this morning. It prevents injuries and saves lives, but only when worn properly. Make it click. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. DB, he was talking about Riley Van Poppel, defensive line there, and he brought up, I think it was a little bit later in that answer, how Riley kind of had waited his turn and waited for when it made sense for him to contribute. And he said the same thing about a couple of guys on the offensive line. And that reminded me about some of the categories we had gone through with this Husker football team that we wanted to kind of get to. And it really reminded me most of all of the now or never category. Because I think there's a group of guys that we look at and we go, and he said one of their names there, where it kind of be like, hey, kind of got to go now.
If you say this guy, it's awful early.
The guy that I'm talking about right now, I don't think it's early on.
It's not Cam Lenhart, is it?
No.
He said Van Poppel, Cam, Keona, Judy. Judy?
Yeah.
I think most people have Judy penciled in as a starter.
Right. I do too. But that's
that's what's throwing me.
That's why it means now or never. Like, he needs to be starter good this year.
He would be a heck of a story too, because he would be one of those guys that would be a beautiful testament to development. Because came on, we were super excited.
Came in highly touted out of Texas.
Then it kind of was a little quiet.
Didn't hear much about it.
Didn't he just kind of like splashed him in?
Yeah, little spurts.
I was like, oh, did Judy jump a couple of these guys? And then it would just like disappear. And then last year is like he was back.
He came on a little bit.
And so he would be a good testament to development.
He would.
That's one of those stories, though, we know nothing about. It could be. So with guys like, this is what I think happens. I'm glad you didn't ask me.
I'm always curious.
We never know what's going on with the day-to-day. And when I tell you that rigor and day-to-day grimy grinds are a real thing, we think we know, but we don't know. Because to repetitively do something every single day,
it's hard.
Is hard.
Yeah. Much harder than playing on Saturdays.
We struggle with it as adults.
Yeah.
Imagine these guys coming out of such different environments and expectations, all having to do the same thing every day.
And for a lot of these guys, having to do something they've never done before.
It's hard.
Right?
And so I think, you may be fantastic in your workout. You may string 3 of them together. Somebody gets on you with academics, or your girlfriend isn't acting right, or
something's wrong with your parents back home, whatever.
You stayed on the game too late because you wanted to, pull a Snickers and get away for a while. Is that Snickers?
Yeah, want to get away?
No, it's Southwest. It's whatever. Terrible analogy. Killed my own vibe. But and sometimes it's just your own mental emotions. If I just take myself for instance, right? Getting going this morning was different than it was getting going yesterday.
Sure.
Or the day before, right? I needed I just had to go through a different mental preparation, and I'm 50, right? So I have different tools that I can draw on. Okay, today feels like I could feel this coming on. I know what I need here, just through experience, right? Trial, error, a little failure, a little success, whatever. When at that age, with so many moving parts, you're trying to figure it out. I watched over the weekend. Caleb look at the finalized schedule and map out the days. Okay, today's 5:45 a.m. to 7:15 p.m. class here, and then on Wednesday it's here, and he's at the table, and of course I'm not involved in the conversation. I'm just with it earshot. It's okay, so Wednesday I can do this because I have this. Like the ability to do that and to have to do that. I'm looking at him like, fudge, man, this dude's only 19. Like, there's no way, right? And I go back and I think, what did I have to do? What's harder now? I think it's harder now to be a student athlete.
Yeah, there's more stuff.
It's significantly harder now.
There's more stuff.
If we got, I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
And especially with somebody that's not flighty, but I mean, as leaf blowy as I can be with my attention span. That's why we had so many guys that couldn't make it.
Yeah. Talented guys.
Really talented guys. Right? You heard the conversation I had with Abdul, right? It's a lot of good, really, really good players, better than a lot of guys that actually played.
Yeah.
That just couldn't repeat the same thing every day.
Who was the Jay Sims, the running back?
Gifted.
Super gifted dude.
Not doing very well. It's interesting you bring him up.
Right? Yeah. But that's the guy that always gets brought up as like, I never could quite figure it out because of how talented he was.
And with him, it was different because he was much more athletic than we were. But I don't even know if it was that close. I mean, he's a 4,000 point index score. It's freaky.
Yeah.
But as a natural player, probably not. Sure. I would say a guy like he's going to be an afterthought. There's a guy, Justin Stevens.
Okay.
Incredible player from Manatee. Played with Tyrone Williams and T. Fraze. About as good a linebacker as I had seen come through there as Foreman.
Yeah.
And in that 5-6 year stretch. Just couldn't do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
Charles Randolph, an unbelievably gifted tight end from Louisiana. Just couldn't do the same thing. Just couldn't. Just the repetitiveness of doing something every day. It just. So for some of these guys, and you have a coach now that asks so much of you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be involved in the community. You need service hours.
Yeah.
He prefers that you're in class.
Yeah, as opposed to online stuff all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. Which makes it harder.
Was a philosophical shift in academics too.
Yeah.
Like that didn't just happen overnight. Like you had to work with some people to redo the class schedule. He wanted his guys in class. He's just old school like that.
Yeah.
So for some of these guys, playing football is like the easy part.
Yeah. It's getting the opportunity to play football because you did everything else right.
You know what's hard for a lot of these guys?
What's that?
Just eating correctly.
Yeah, you've brought that up a lot.
You have no idea.
Yeah. No, I mean,
just do what you're supposed to do. Like, just do what you're supposed to do from a nutrition standpoint or your recovery. Just show up to recovery.
Yeah.
Just go.
Like, just go get treatment.
Yeah.
Just go do the thing you're supposed to do.
I didn't think it'd be that hard.
Yeah.
But I also know, I mean, I fought the same trainer for a year and a half over. I mean, I got kicked out of practice for not getting taped. Like, how stupid is that in the grand scheme of things?
Yeah.
Just go get taped.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It hurts. Don't just go get taped. I don't like it. The line was too long for the guy that I like to tape me.
Yeah. So you bailed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, wear a tail pad. My pants don't fit right. Put the tail pad in. I can't make as many moves. Put the tail pad in. Coach, I'm telling you, like, nobody ever hits me in my butt. Like, they don't. 3 days later, he'll come out, he'll lift my shirt up, and he'll see that there's no tail pad in. Down, back, down, back, down, back. See in 12. Really? Over a tail pad? Just put the tail pad in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not fun. I mean, it's funny now.
Yeah, it's funny now.
But it just seems so It's just.
It's like, why is that a hill you're dying on?
Yeah. Because you're
19.
Your brain isn't developed.
Yeah, because you're 19, you're dumb, you don't know any better.
Yeah. So I just think, and they ask a lot of them.
Yeah.
They do. And now you have your iPads. They want to be good, and it's competitive, and they run it like a business, and you need business acumen.
Yeah.
So it's like, so the Judy thing, I think, is like all those guys.
Yeah. So I wanted to stay on.
You got new faces.
I wanted to stay on the now or never here for a second because I do think it's to me it's the most interesting category of guys that it's sort of like a make or break year for them. And I sort of want to avoid seniors because it's like a little low hanging fruit. It's like, well, yeah, if they don't contribute now, then obviously they're out of eligibility, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's why I was a little hesitant on Judy because I believe, if my math is right, this is his last year of eligibility. I still get a little confused on who's a senior versus super duper senior and whatever.
Tevin Campbell.
But I look around and I mean, if you look at it, you brought up Cam Lenhart. It's really not that early for him anymore.
Thought you were going to say Cam, and I still feel like it is. Is this year 3?
This is year 3.
Well, now's about the time.
Right.
Okay.
Like, you're getting pretty close.
Yeah.
Like, I do look at that sort of third-year junior class, since he never redshirted, of guys that, like, this is sort of, like, put up or shut up time. Because if this team is as deep as we think they are, especially with the last couple classes, and you're a senior next year and you haven't figured it out yet, there's some guys that are going to pass you. Mm-hmm. Some younger guys that are going to pass you, right? So I look at especially how many guys we name off at those spots yesterday on the defensive line, young guys.
Quite a few.
And if if Lenhart doesn't figure it out, he's going to get passed.
It's funny how in that one conversation talking about the D-line, remember how we were going back and forth between your sentiment, my sentiment, me feeling like Shafe, me feeling like you. Shoot, Coach Rhule did the exact same thing, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, we had some really good guys, but we got some really good young guys.
And
I think we're going to be really good.
We're going to miss these guys, but these guys are ready. And,
Yeah, so that was that. I thought that conversation was interesting.
I do think the D-line room's fascinating.
Seems like they got a lot of guys.
They do, and they have a lot of guys I like.
But weren't we worried, or am I misremembering?
I wasn't. A lot of people are. A lot of people still are. But I also think, and I'm
not to say you shouldn't. I mean,
yeah,
those guys were good. Those guys were good.
I also think there's, and I brought this up kind of in passing yesterday, and we've talked about it some throughout, is if you think they're going to try and play a Ty Robinson defense without Ty Robinson, you should be worried.
Yeah,
I don't think that's going to happen.
It had to get your attention when he said Judy was 300.
Oh, yeah.
I was like.
And Van Poppel's probably 290, isn't he?
I don't know. He seems bigger than Judy to me.
He's a big boy. So you're looking at, I get that neither one of them are Ty or Nash at this point, but I mean, you got a couple big guys in there. It's not like,
you know what I think else he's getting?
What's that?
I think he's getting some guys that really love being there.
Sure.
And don't underestimate that.
Well, that was really interesting because when he was talking about guys that were sort of waiting their turn, right? Because that's sort of, I don't know if that made anybody else's ears perk up a little bit, but in today's day and age of transfer portal and whatever, guys waiting their turn seems like a very scary concept.
But they're just kind of building that culture.
Yeah. And if
they dangle the carrot and they set the plan, it's just so many weird
and what did he call
familiarities to how we used to feel.
What did he call it yesterday? He didn't call it the secret sauce, but he called it something like that about when he was talking about Van Poppel and some of these other guys waiting their turn. And then he moved over to the offensive line too. Talked about like a Grant Bricks because he was talking about Bricks. And I think Preston Talmua, where he goes, these were highly rated guys that are just waiting their turn because they understand this is what it's sort of about.
And he outwardly sets the expectation too, right? Where he talks about year one, we do this. Second year, we do this. Year three. So,
but it's also really hard when
he's speaking it into existence to set the expectation level.
For sure.
Because it minimizes the panic. If you look around in year 1.5,
you're like, why aren't I playing?
And why aren't I blank? And then you can go back and say, that's why that's exactly what I mean when I say common language builds in accountability.
Sure. You can we told you exactly what
you
this
can
was gonna
talk
be.
Shorthand and everybody gets it.
I will say, and you know this from being an athlete, and especially when you're younger, is how often do you hear, hey, you're not going to play till year 3. You're not going to play till year 3. This is how we do it here. You're not going to play till year 3. But as an athlete who thinks you're really good with an ego, how often do you think it was like, well, that doesn't apply to me?
And they're not saying you can't.
Right. But that's the plan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not saying like, hey, if you're better than this guy, it doesn't matter. You got to wait till year 3. They're saying, hey, this is the expectation is you come in, you kind of get the body we need you to be in. That's year 1. Then you start getting some reps. That's year 2.
Who did he say went from 170 to 1? Did he say Parker was
Jamarion. He came in at 170s.
He was already a little barrel-chested dude.
Now.
I had to take a double take. I'm like, I hope he still has his abs. I'm childish.
Well, I don't know if you saw Tim Verghese, our Friday friend, tweeted out a picture of Keona Davis, saying he was a little bulked up a little bit.
His that's a frame that I love.
He can carry some weight.
That I love from day one.
Yeah, he can carry some weight.
And again, another guy that dabbled with the portal.
Yeah, came right on back though.
Yeah,
that's a Keona Davis is a guy. Keona Davis isn't in now or never mode yet. I do think we're there with Emmett Johnson. This is kind of a now or never. I think.
I can't ride with it.
Yeah. Is there anybody that you're like, hey, like it's go time. We got to go.
Yeah. There is. I think, and for different reasons.
Sure.
I would probably put Buford in that class.
Okay.
I think Singleton's in that class.
I think there's a lot of people in the secondary because there's so many people chasing them.
I think Singleton's in that class.
Yeah.
I think Javen Wright is in that class.
Okay.
I mean, because this is what he came back for. And there is, for him, not to go all corny Rocky, but there is no tomorrow.
Yeah.
Are there young guys? Because you're right. The older guys, it's low-hanging fruit, right? It's like...
I feel like you have to be like at least a junior.
Oh, boy. Who would I paint in that?
And I know this is a different question for you because I'm very much
you know what room I would gravitate towards?
Which one?
Probably the wide receiver room because they were continuing to recruit the heck out of that position.
Yeah. So who? I mean,
because they've slowed down in the DB room.
Yeah, like we got a few guys to figure out here. But there's not really any older guys in that room.
No.
Not that have been here.
There are some guys that I think could come from off the radar, though, that have been there a while. I have one in particular that I think is really good, and I'm excited to watch, and that's Gage Stenger.
Oh yeah, and Gage has gotten brought up a couple times in the offseason.
It's exciting.
I like his personality fits what they're after.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just not going to go away. When I tell you, he just keeps showing up.
Yeah.
And which is one of my favorite lines, right? I rock the keep showing up t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more emotional, right? Just battling emotional toughness. But he comes every day, gets the door for you, loves football, does a lot of the little things. Invests in his teammates.
Yeah.
And it could potentially be at his own expense. So there's a couple of those guys.
You know who I thought you were going to say?
Who?
It's a guy I like a lot, but we haven't really seen pop yet.
Who's that?
Janarin Bonner.
Yeah. I like Bonner.
I like Bonner a lot. Like, I like his skill set a lot.
How many years is this for Bonner?
He's still only listed as a junior.
Is that right?
That's what it says on the roster.
I like him.
I do too.
You look at it, he looks like a grown-up.
I like Bonner a lot. I've always liked Bonner. I think he can be super versatile, and he's moved around a little bit.
That's probably not a bad one.
But, like, I think there's a lot there, and there's a lot to like. We just haven't really seen it.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't seen it turn into production yet. So he's kind of one of those guys to look at. Like, probably needs to.
Where did he start? Did they move him to fullback?
So he started at tight end.
And
They moved him to wide receiver. Then he became a fullback. And then last year he moved back to wide receiver.
What spring was that? He was running like dives and traps. And I was like, is he messing with us?
Nope. He played fullback.
Yeah.
Good on him.
Yeah, it happens.
I would like to see Janarin Bonner pop. That's one of those guys.
And you like him too.
I always have. Yeah, I've always thought he could be a really interesting guy for them.
I'm big on Stenger.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's an off the radar one. Coming up next, we will talk to our guy, Brian Christopherson, Husker247. Maybe we can ask him a couple of these hard questions.
Sizzle.
He's usually got some good answers. That's DBM Ravi Lulla. It's Hurrdat Sports Live. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we are joined now by our friend Brian Christopherson from Husker247. BC, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, not a lot. How are you guys?
B Sizzle. How you doing? Okay.
I'm doing excellent. Opening day tomorrow.
Yeah, I know, and I wanted to get. I want to get into Nebraska baseball so bad, but I don't have any answers yet.
I don't have any answers either. It's not my wheelhouse. So you
I know.
don't spend one on me on that.
I know. I watched. They hit like 4 or 5 balls yesterday with an exit velo of like over 100 miles an hour. And it was a good offensive night for him. And it's still like, then the pitching didn't go right. I don't know. I try not to hit panic on him. Maybe I'll wait to talk to Brunsey, but you got to be a little surprised, don't you?
I am. Brunsey's the man on it. I know. I popped into the game thread he had going on our board, and I saw they're down 5-0 in the second inning. I was like, I was like the Simpsons meme or whatever. The guy sees himself back into the bushes. I'm like, I'm not gonna pay attention to this.
Yeah. Are you excited about your Twins?
I think they're gonna win like mid 80s, 83, 85, something like that.
Right around the Dodgers.
Yeah, they have the worst injury problems of any sports team. I feel like Royce Lewis is already dinged up, so I don't know. They have a good pitching staff on paper, though, so that's where I'll give them a chance. I think anybody but the White Sox could win the Central.
And you open with you have the Cardinals.
That's right. We're going into Baseball City to start it off.
Little Lopez versus Gray, then, huh?
That's what it is. Yeah.
I think the more interesting question isn't the over/under on Twins wins; it's over/under on Buxton games played. That also 85.
I've hammered on Buxton on this show too much, so I'm gonna just be positive and hope that he has that year where he's out there for 100 20 or something like that. I'm not counting on it, but let's give him a shot, because I've been on here before and called him Mr. Glass and all that stuff. So let's not throw that into the air right now.
There's some great. We were supposed to get a baseball guy this week. It probably got away from us, if I'm guessing, because I'm kind of squirrely. But there's some great matchups. You got Tigers and the Dodgers. You have Guardians and the Royals. I think there's Braves, Padres. And who do the Mets have? Do the Mets have Houston? It might be the Mets and there's some good ones. BC. And of course, let's throw in your
Mets, Houston.
Of course, the Twins Cardinals at 87 World Series rematch.
And Brewers have the Yankees. If the Brewers are even remotely close to what they did a year ago, I mean, color me crazy, especially when you have an owner during all those spending discussions with the Dodgers that said, hey, you know what? We're built for the regular season. I don't know what we're going to be able to do in the post. That's it. I'm like, wow, if I was in the Brewers.
They need to do it for Euchre.
Exactly. Euchre and Lane Grindle. Let's go, Brewers.
Yeah, go Lane.
All right, BC. So were you more surprised that he went in depth with the running backs? Kind of it was solicited, but a little unsolicited with the adjectives, or the D-line going back and kind of showing a new level of excitement after a couple of weeks ago talking about what they had lost, and were we appreciative enough?
Probably the running backs, but it makes sense to me why he would say that. One, he, I think, believes it, but also it's good for those guys to hear that. I think too, like in a setting like that the head coach believes that guys are right here in this room that can produce, because there is going to be that outside conversation when people are like, well, what could they still get out there? And I'm one of them. And then you're like, well, maybe a running back, I don't know, D lineman, you throw that out there, and that's sort of the conversation that spins in the wind. So I think it's useful for that room when the head man like resets that conversation a bit. Is like, no, I still believe in Quinton Ives, just like I've said like 4 or 5 times up here. Mekhi Nelson, by the way, almost played last year, and he listed off reasons they're really impressed with him. I know you are too, Damon, that you saw some things in him to like. And then obviously you got the young guys, and it sounds like Jamarian Parker going from like 175 to 190, in his first couple months has really taken nutrition and strength and all that. And Connor Booth is, one of the best athletes in the class. So I like that he bolstered belief in that group going into spring, and we'll see how it goes. He said right now that it's not a position where I think we have to make a move or anything. We've got the guys basically. And I always go back to the bowl game, and we always say on here, Holgerson's a guy we think just shoots it straight. And he had that quote. He's like, number 28 is doing some things. These first 8 practices, he's looked really great. And that has always stuck in my head. I didn't think Holgerson just said that to say it.
I wanted it to be the other number 28, and then I realized he was wearing 35, so he rained on my parade. No, I'm kidding. Well, along those lines, B, did you get the sense, and as the question asker, did you get the sense that we just assumed that Emmett was the set apart, and then it was everybody else, or kind of what was your feel as that question's being, or as he's answering the question?
My feel was the question, and everyone on the outside looking in is looking at it as there's RB1, and it needs a complement to it. It needs the second and third punches, and I don't know that they think differently about that, but it is important that they get those 3 to 4 guys you feel really good about, and that second guy, if Emmett has the same attitude that he's had in Hunger when he wasn't the guy when he was chasing, now that he's the guy being chased. I like a lot of what Emmett could do as the top guy, but you do want that alternate that can give you something, and they had a little bit of that with Dell. And we'll see. I do think Quinton, I know, had a nice kick return in one of the games. They're getting blown out at Indiana, so people didn't pay much attention to it, but he has always been someone that this staff has stood by and said he can play. We really think he can play. And I know some people have thought that's just coach speak, but they've said it enough that I don't think so. And it is interesting. He's up to 210 pounds. So he's done some work with his body too.
BC, we've talked a lot about, just in general and this morning, about guys and how they kind of have to endure all the other stuff to be able to get to play and have the ability to get on the field. How much when you think he's talking about, whether it's a Quentin Ives or like an Elijah Judy or guys that at some point or another have gotten brought up multiple times about, oh, we think this guy can really play. How much of it is telling us sort of the situation in each room versus reminding those guys publicly that, hey, if you do the things we ask of you, we really believe you can be good?
I think the second part's really important. Not that they don't say that in the meeting rooms and stuff like that, but I think there is something to be said for when it gets said publicly. And then it's out in the headlines, and then the next, day people are talking like this about, like, maybe they do have the guys over there to get it done, and they, it reshapes the conversation a little bit. And those guys can't help but catch wind of all the talk that's out there. Like D linemen, I'm sure, are aware that, like, in all the spring capsule type stories, they get labeled as sort of like a question mark. How do they replace the cheat code, tie and stuff like that? And so I think it's useful to them. Like, hey, we believe in you. Look at, like he mentioned in Judy's case, this is a guy who's gone from 270-ish to like 300 pounds now. He's worked hard to change his body. I know that he was making progress last year. And I do think, to your question, Ravi, we have to remind ourselves sometimes every guy's dealing with something we don't even know about that's not football related. That factors into this too. Not a bad thing in Elijah's case, but it's a public thing, so I feel comfortable talking about it. I mean, he had a young son, that first year he was on campus, and so that's a big life adjustment, and he gets used to that. I just think sometimes we can lose sight of some of that stuff that's going on too. So you got to always remind yourself, maybe I don't know the full story on why some guys wasn't heard from as much this season. There's a lot of other things going on. So you got to always at least keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, BC, because I think that's, people always ask me all over the place. Doesn't matter what, you one of the few guys that you were in on early. Like, I think I liked there were these little things that I liked about Coach Rhule that I think kind of helped develop the man crush. And almost none of it had to do with football. It was this weird thing about how if you're around him for 15 or 20 minutes or however long, you left and you're like, man, I probably got to be better. Or that guy doesn't cheat the 24 hours in the day, right? He maximizes the time in the day. Or my favorite kind of what he's been talking about is there's this weird thing, and I think if the guys get it, they could really take off. There's so much more to the game that has to do with just attacking life, and the sooner you guys learn to equate the two, the better off you're gonna be. Like that holistic approach he has to young men being functional men is fascinating, right? Where I just want to get Tommi Hill to, pro workouts, or I want to see Bullock have the opportunity to succeed, or I want these seniors to get the monkey off their back, or I really like Marquise Buford because he just this holistic approach to complete people, not just players. I think that's the thing that I love the most.
Yeah, that's a good point. And yesterday, I don't know that a lot of people see it. There's probably a video of it somewhere. MJ Sherman did an interview after his pro day workout, and I always enjoyed his insights while he was here. And he had some funny, but I mean, it is just interesting. Like he said, I never would have thought of coming to Nebraska at like age 18. It's just funny how life works. I ended up here, and he said, I thank God for Coach Rhule and the staff, and just like the tough stuff they put me through a little bit, like the mat drills and some of that. Like when he was training for pro day, when he felt like he was in a rut, he'd think like, oh, at least it's not mat drills, like, so I mean, when you hear him, like he said that sort of last year when he was a senior, but still talking about it and sort of the reverence he has for like the dedication that it takes. in Rhule's program, but also how it builds you up and helps you in other endeavors like what he's going through now. It was really, I thought, insightful and interesting. So people might look for that. But I think that kind of connects to what you're saying.
Appreciated too, BC.
Yeah, he probably was.
He played well last year. He did a lot of little things that didn't show up on the stat sheet.
I mean, when you hear him, when you hear Spindler, go and Dane Key and McCullough go up like a week or two ago and say those mat drills, like I haven't seen anything like that. Like, I mean, that's just a piece of it, but it gives you an idea that the guys who, as Rocco said in that interview, the guys who are going to be on the 105, they're going to be a good 105 because they would have gone through all this. And so it's a really fascinating story we have right in front of us, and we can't lose sight of it. I do feel a little bit like Rhule's, even though he's adapting to what's going on, but he's still keeping his tenets of we are going to develop guys, and in that third year of like they're building up their body and stuff, it's going to pop. And I'm not saying that's not happening elsewhere, but I do think there's a trust in it here still in Rhule's staff that maybe isn't everywhere. And it's going to be interesting if it does work. Like if you can get those guys, they stick around. Let's say like Quinton Ives does pop this year. That's a case where, let's be honest, in this day and age, a lot of times you wouldn't have a running back for that third year to see what he can do, but maybe it does take off. And some of these linemen, as he said the other day, like they beat out a lot of people for like Bricks and Tamua. You know, you just got to keep building them and hope those guys have patience with it, because they can still be something really impressive in this program. And so I'm just kind of intrigued by they're adapting, but yet it's still that building development process that's key to everything.
Yeah, BC, you know, there's a lot in there. And part of me, you know, I go to these guys that, you know, obviously everyone wants to play early, right? And a lot of times with linemen especially, most of them aren't ready to play early, not at a high level and not in a place where they can be highly successful. And part of it is, like, I just really appreciate the trust that they've been able to build with these guys, because, you know, Grant Bricks, when he's going through his recruiting process, everybody's telling him like, oh, I'm sure we can get you on the field early and all this, where that might be what you want, but it might not be what's best for you. You know what I mean? Like, especially as a lineman, how many times have we seen guys get put out there too early? We worried about it with Gunnar Gatula last year, right? Where you go, hey, are we putting him in a position to be successful with putting him out there probably a year before they wanted to? Like, when you see things like that work out, how much do you think that impacts younger classes building that trust in the coaching staff?
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be pretty critical to have those examples in front of you. And that's why I think Rocco Spindler's a nice addition too, is because if you look at what happened to him at Notre Dame, he played like 20 snaps his first 2 years. He was a 4-star guy. And so he's an example of someone who had to sort of wait his turn. But with this too, I mean, there are those guys, they show willingness too. Like if we think that you have bumped ahead of somebody, or at least into a position where we can play you, like Willis McGahee last year played and Keona Davis played, and you know that we're talking D-line type there, but they have shown that part too, like they will get some young guys on the field. But to your point, I do think it is really important, probably an underrated aspect, to have a few examples in front of you. Look, this guy didn't get it right away. Emmett Johnson didn't get it right away. Like, he had to battle his way up to the top. I mean, I remember 2 years ago going into that season, Rhule liked him, but he was like 4th or 5th when the season started, and he kept going and going. There's some injuries here and there, but he took advantage. And so guys look at stuff like that and going to say, that could be me too.
You know, I thought was interesting, kind of going back to Coach Rhule and this evolution as like the overseer. I thought it was interesting. He pulled kind of this, you know, there's disciplinarians, and some people, he or she will like yell at you. Some kind of give you the look. Everybody kind of has different styles. Yesterday was the first time there was kind of this, I don't know if admonish is the word, you know, the whole Dylan thing with the question, and he didn't like how some of the media handled it. it was a new wrinkle for me to watch him show disappointment without really going into chastising or kind of being as condescending. And I felt like it was still equally as powerful. Like it forced us to think like, man, did we need to do better? Like that hurt him a little bit because that was the demeanor that he kind of showed, is that it hurt him a little bit.
It was like the dad, like, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Yeah, I thought it was powerful, and it was kind of it was new for him.
Yeah. A little bit of that. I don't know. I don't see everything that's out there that got put out, so I don't know how everybody presented it. I remember going on your show the morning after that, and you mentioned it was a topic, and I didn't even actually think of it that way at the time. So I didn't know it had traveled as much as it did, or it was like a big discussion point. I guess I had my head in the sand on that one, but
I thought the same thing. He brought it up to me, and I was like, no. And then we went through. I mean, he wasn't.
Here's the thing. The reason I guess I didn't think of it on the spot was he had been on the McAfee show at the Combine, and he had used the same numbers just as an example. Like, you can't do it at 240. So I just took it as like he's just using those numbers. Like, this is the example, of. But anyway, yeah, I think there was some of that. And also, the key part within that probably was him saying, I basically think about everything I say up here to a degree, like there's a reason it's said a certain way, and I wouldn't have put it that way. So yeah, it's something to think about. And I'm always processing that I try to, he's an interesting coach to cover because his thoughts, and this is a compliment to him, are so long sometimes. Like, you do a disservice actually if you cut up his quotes and then you sort of have your segues in there. You almost like have to let quotes go for a while to let the whole thought play out. So that's just an interesting dynamic of covering them too.
Yeah, Shane certainly feels that that struggle with trying to cut all the Rhule audio. But I do wonder, as we kind of listened to him, and it sounded like he was when kind of in that Rhule answer or in the Raiola answer, it sounded like he kind of gave us permission to just be like, hey, what I'm telling you is exactly what I mean. So just take me at my word. Because I think a lot of this has been, we kind of parse through and try and
we've had the conversations too, guys, where we say we're just not used to somebody just telling us. Yeah. So we even parse through that.
But I mean, he kind of like, hey, I say things in a specific way for a specific reason. I'm pretty intentional about that. So just trust me when just trust what I'm saying.
Well, you could take that to he just brought up Quinton Ives like 5 times, like that he believes that he's a good player, and that's one of those where people are like, okay, whatever. And he said it again yesterday. So to your point, I think he is someone who he's not going to say it just to say it, or he's not going to mention a player just to pat him on the back for no reason. So that's something that has to be noted, I think, going forward.
BC, when you're let's say you get dropped in, right? You've heard now, you've got a couple days under your belt, and then we get what he said yesterday. Would the position group, if you only got one that you got to go watch, has it changed from pre-spring to anything that's been said yesterday or kind of as you put pen to paper with returning guys, or is that position group still the same?
I think it's the same. The defensive line, I think was before the spring and still is. I think that's a fascinating conversation too, because I understand where when you look at it on paper, and I've said, last year's group kind of applied to that get old, stay old mantra, and this group isn't like that. But so there's kind of that doubt, like, okay, are these guys actually ready for the show? But then I think back to like 2 years ago, and we actually had a very similar offseason conversation about that D-line before it happened, because Nash had been kind of a fringe player, and Ty hadn't really taken off like the Ty we knew his senior year at that point. And so there were doubts, and there was some worries about like some guys that people can't even remember their names that like went in the portal that offseason. People forget about. So I take like, okay, I think that this group like has some questions that they have to answer. It's a challenge, but I also look at Rhule's full resume as a head coach and even a position coach. And the one position group where I would say you would probably nod your head that he's been like, it's always been pretty stout, is defensive line. And so it kind of pushes back on that idea, like for the, when you have your doubts about it. So that, but that, all that to say, that's why I'd want to go watch them and just see like where some of those guys are at, how they're developing. And of course, as a layman, I probably wouldn't know some of what I was seeing if it was real progress or not, but that would be my first group.
BC, as we kind of get into the very start of spring here, from now versus, and I understand the roster is still going to change a little bit, but from now versus 4 months ago when the season ended with the Pinstripe Bowl, do you think the roster is better today than it was in December?
Yeah, I do. I say it with some hesitancy because there are some guys that I really respected that you have to replace, but I always think of the old scene in Friday Night Lights where Billy Bob's taking the pieces off the board and putting up new names. And that's a little bit what Rhule was saying the other day. Like, that's what football is. Like, you fall sort of in love with certain names because you've followed them for so long and you've written so many stories about them. And there's new guys that you recruited for a reason and they're here for a reason and you believe that they can produce. But another thing that Rhule has said, if we're talking about just saying, okay, he's not going to say it just to say it. He thinks there's more talent over there. I mean, he's been on the record with that. And I do also, I like some of the ways that they can maybe find that talent in different aspects. Like Mike Eckler as an evaluator, I think with special teams might be a new eye that brings something out of a guy. He mentioned Bryce Turner like a week or two ago, like seeing something in him. And so I think there could be examples like that. I like that they're saying, let's find what a guy can do, not what he can't do. And I think with that, even if the talent were equal, if you're able to accentuate guys' best assets better this year, just a little better than last year, it'll look like they're more talented, even if it's a wash, so that's part of like coaching and developing too. But I like their mindset about that. And I do think they have some good evaluators. And I'm really interested in the Eckler piece, how he can work different guys into that system and get them involved. And then that builds confidence for him to get to the 2 deep at some point.
I wonder if we could get back. You know what I hope, since you bring up Eckler, I hope we get back to the guys chomping at the bit to play special teams because, I mean, that's the ticket, right? Like, I want to be seen. You heard Eck talk about different skill sets needed if you're a wide receiver that are portable or a DB or a linebacker. And we've seen a couple of guys that are playing in this defense currently that started out because they got noticed on special teams. I hope they get to the point where guys are like, man, I want on, right? I want on these special forces just because I want to do the darn thing.
Yeah, I think that's a big storyline because also just think about that. If like that unit really gets humming and you're part of it, and when we get to the season and that feeling's in the air and you're involved, like you're not just someone sitting on the sideline, you're in that unit that's making a difference, that's changing the game. And even if you are second or third team at your position at that point, you're excited about it. Not to butter you up, Damon, but I watch old games all the time. And I mean, I see you pop up on like special teams. I think you had like almost a forced fumble against Kansas State, like in a game Eckler was playing in Manhattan, something like that. I mean, guys wanted to be on it and they made plays and they earned their stripes doing it. So I hope that's the attitude over there. And I kind of feel like this is not knocking what's been. It's just looking ahead. I just looking at Eckler's track record and how he got guys at Tennessee to buy into that who weren't starters on that team tells me that he's got a pretty good way of communicating and getting guys to kind of go with that.
That's our guy, Brian Christopherson, Husker247. BC, we appreciate the time. As always, we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to our friend Andy Kendeigh from KETV. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Hurrdat Sports Live coming up next. Welcome back here at Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by Andy Kendeigh from KETV. What's up, Andy?
Good morning, boys, and happy opening day eve. I know the Dodgers played the Cubs a couple weeks ago, but tomorrow is opening day. And DB, I see that the Dodgers' magic number is down to 161. So,
wow, we got the Tigers tomorrow. Yeah. AK, it should be a good one.
Don't you hate? I need
a little Scooble in my life.
But I do not like opening day with the interleague. Like, can't we wait until like the first weekend? Do we have to open interleague? I know the Brewers are playing the Yankees tomorrow. It's like, come on now.
Oh, there's a lot that the Twins have the Cardinals. There's
it's silly.
Are you AK out on interleague opening day stuff?
Well,
is that better? Is that better or worse than splitting opening day because you do a little deal overseas?
Asinine.
So that's definitely worse. Okay.
So not a fan?
I mean, think about this. No, I mean, these two teams go over across the seas, right? And then they play two games that count, and then they come back and play games that don't count. What? I mean, that's not opening day. Stop it. Like, get a clue.
He said, knock it off.
Major League Baseball they can't get out of their own way.
Knock it off, all right?
Frustrates me. I mean, my goodness, it's such a great sport. And it's trying to attract an audience, and then you want to have opening day at like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning? That's silly.
AK, what are we going to do about Nebraska baseball?
I'll tell you what. Yikes. This is
and I get it. That's their first midweek loss, but that's amongst a lot of conference losses, so there's no solace in the good start to midweeks.
Yeah. No, and I there's concern, and no question. And, the pitching has been so inconsistent as well as the hitting. So you got to get something on, if one of the two things are on board, then it's one thing. But, man, when both your pitching and your hitting has been so inconsistent, I don't know. And then, by the way, this will get you back on track. Only 5th-ranked Oregon State is coming to town. But maybe in a weird way, maybe this is what they need. They need to play a top team in the country at home in front of big crowds, and maybe this will start them. I don't know. I'm trying to stay positive about this team because we still got a long way to go. It's a lot of baseball left, but early returns are not positive for the Big Red.
Yeah, they hit a lot of balls hard last night. So I was like, offense is showing life. But, then the pitching got away from them. Would you let me think that, hey, they had been playing well in midweeks and they hadn't, so that's a bonus? Or are you just looking at, DB, you can't explain the start with the conference record?
Yeah, I mean, you can't. Yeah, I don't think you can explain the start with the conference record because the midweek games are one thing, and when you say they played well, they won at Pepperdine, which is fine. I mean, Pepperdine is down this year and what have you. And they did beat Wichita State, which is good. But you make your money on the weekends, and obviously they haven't made hay. Now, that being said, to open your year at UCLA, at USC. Granted, you should have taken care of Washington. This is life in the new Big Ten. So, it's like, what do they say? Nobody cares. Nobody cares about excuses. Just get it done. And that's what I think. That's where they're at right now. I think they got to figure it out, and they got to figure it out pretty quick because the schedule doesn't lighten up, especially with Oregon State coming to town. And then they, then they got Creighton and Omaha. Before Rutgers and Iowa. So, there's a chance to get this train rolling if they get it on the right track.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if they can continue to swing the sticks because it was just one real night where they were hitting the ball in the screws, but they're going to have their hands full with this Oregon State staff. So I don't even know if I should let that be a barometer.
Yeah, it is a tough deal. And I understand that this goofy Big Ten schedule, it just doesn't seem weird that Oregon State's coming to town, especially after playing USC, UCLA, and Washington on consecutive weekends. It's like, now we're going non-con against the Pac-12 team after we just played 3 big Pac-12 teams. It's just a weird. It's a weird. I'm so confused these days with conferences and what have you. it's a strange deal. But yes, going up against the Beaver pitching is not going to be an easy chore, no question.
And quiet, but not quiet. Coach Hoiberg loses one off his staff as Coach Howard takes a job with NC State. Do you get the sense, or I mean, are you just kind of moving on that this appears to be for tenure's sake? This feels like an important hire, critical, if you will.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this off season. I mean, talk about a jigsaw puzzle, and this is the way it's going to be like this every year. And it was interesting the last couple of years when you've been putting together teams, right? Not just staffs, but teams. It's been an interesting way of looking at it. Like, I was questioning internally, like, man, you're going to try to blend all these new faces from new places in Lincoln and try to get a cohesive unit. And yeah, it worked really well a couple years ago. Last year, the results were mixed. But the thing that I took away from it is they were kind of ahead of the curve because every team is going to be doing that this year and from now on with this portal stuff. And I think that the coaching staff, bringing in a hire that can be a difference maker is paramount for Nebraska at this point, because they've got to bring in talent. They've got to replace scorers, multiple scorers, and by the way, you still have to make sure the chemistry is intact or build chemistry from the ground up. That's the challenge, I think, for the modern day college basketball coach. And it's a tough deal.
The portal is flooded. It's got a ton of good players. Creighton's meeting with Dix. You got Sanford taking an official at Nebraska. It just seems
Freeman already took official to Creighton.
Yeah, I think they got a good shot at Freeman too. Mm-hmm. AK, it just seems like you got to get while the getting appears to be relativly good.
And make sure you have the budget for it, right?
Yeah, that's the part I don't worry about. If a guy's on deck and they need him, they'll figure it out.
Sure, and I get, I'm fascinated by this 20.5, and what the breakdown will be. Yes. And then furthermore,
you count down April 7th? I don't think we're gonna know.
Well, I don't think we're going to have a budget in front of us. We're not going to have line items in terms of who gets what. But I do think it's interesting to see how each school prioritizes the pie, right? Who gets the biggest slice? And I do wonder where Nebraska basketball falls in that grand scheme, right? So, and I know above and beyond the 20.5. There's still NIL opportunities, but there's more gymnastics you have to, there's more hurdles to jump over to make those deals happen. So, the money part of it, I just think it's just a new day and age. And I think that, a lot of these players are going out there not necessarily worrying about the right fit. They're worrying about the right amount. You know what I mean? So what Nebraska is willing to offer is one part, but let's see if they can bring in the right pieces.
Andy, I do wonder, as you kind of look at the landscape of Nebraska basketball, how much do you think one assistant coach hire can actually impact the overall direction of the program?
Well, it can, and it can to a point, but the bottom line is this.
Oh, it can. I mean, right? if it's a guy like Murphy or Huss or somebody, it's like it's huge. So it's all relative.
Well, yeah. Look down the street.
Still got the same head coach.
Assistant coaches. Yeah, but the head coach is the guy driving the bus, right?
Let you tell it.
So, but look at all those guys that Coach Mack has now, produced in terms of head coaches. I mean, it's pretty amazing, his tree that's just growing branches by the year, right? I mean, that says a lot about the big man over at Creighton, right? Yeah. So this is Fred's deal, and yes, the assistant coach is a very important piece, no question. But the guy running the shop, it's Fred's deal, and hopefully people, that he brings in the right people. He obviously has enough connections to have a good, pool of candidates, and assuming he makes the right choice, maybe this is a pivotal hire that can change the direction of the program. But all I know, fellas, is that, did you see the new court design?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's right, Dan and Ravi?
I
mean,
don't allow
thumbs up?
I don't allow myself to get involved in that talk unsolicited. But since you asked me,
Yeah.
us,
Do we like it?
I like the court. But I'm
Yeah.
not that dude though. Like I'm like the no fun police. Cool court though.
Well, if can you shoot a logo 3? Does logo 3 qualify if you shoot from the state of Nebraska, or do you have to shoot from Herbie?
AK, I can't shoot.
Logo
so
is logo.
I mean,
Logo is logo.
I'm
right?
in the layup line, my guy. So
I'm just excited to hear all the Nebraska towns that people have made shots from. From Ogallala.
North Platte, bang,
Bang!
From Alliance. There we go.
AK, Ravi asked me about my man ICU, Mr. Gifford. The 4.45 at Pro Day. He showed some good quickness. He asked me a question that I thought was interesting. He looked at me and he kind of tilted his head and he goes, "Is 4.45 good for Gifford?"
5.5. 4.5.
4.55 good for Gifford. I go, "Yeah, that's pretty good." And he goes, "I don't know. It seems like he needs a couple more ticks." How much are we pitting what we saw him in terms of his play versus what he actually ran? Because any other time, I think 4.45 for a 219-pounder would be pretty good.
Yeah, I would think so too. Ty Robinson said something, poignant yesterday when we were talking to him.
Ooh,
And he
poignant.
said, you know what? You can poignant. He said, if you boil it down, the measurables are one thing, but it all comes down, if you can play ball, you can play ball, and the tape doesn't lie. So, if teams like what they see about Giff on tape, they're going to go after him. And, I will tell you this, whoever gets him, likely an undrafted free agent, I'm guessing, or maybe a late rounder, they're going to be pretty happy. That's a nice undrafted free agent pickup if you pick up Isaac Giff. I think he'd be a great addition to any team.
That's our guy, Andy Kendeigh, KETV. We appreciate it as always, AK.
Good man, AK.
Yeah, happy opening day, boys.
We'll see you, buddy.
I'm still bummed out we won't get to see you out there for the media in the spring game, but maybe next year.
Maybe
Yeah,
next year.
I think they're having that meeting of the minds this morning.
All right. Well, tell them I'm ready. I'm ready to drop back, play a little QB. I'm ready to go.
All right.
Andy, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
See ya.
A lot of those guys don't want to run around.
Oh, I'm ready to go. I'm rip roaring. I'm here for it.
He did take his little subtle shot. No, I'm being serious. I want to see you guys catch a punt.
He's like, I want to see sit back there and I'll write something about it on the internet. Critique how we did.
Yeah, he got us a few shots in. Shots fired.
He's not really comparing apples to oranges here, Coach, but all right. That's fair. We'll be back. More Hurrdat Sports Live. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here from Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, reminding you, make sure you get over to supernovas.com to get tickets. We're getting towards, kind of that crunch time in the season. You've only got so many home games left. Make sure you get out there, supernovas.com. Support Omaha's professional volleyball team. And don't forget, reigning champs as well. Get out there. It's supernovas.com. DB. You don't have any answers for Nebraska baseball?
You sound like you sound like Zoe. I could be the only one in the room, and she still says "Dad."
Yeah.
You could just start talking. You could just start talking to me. It's okay.
Well, I might be talking to Shane. You don't know.
You know he can't hear.
He can hear. He's just not listening. There's a difference.
Yeah. Selective. I don't know. They have to hit the
Selective
ball.
delay.
I said this 3 weeks ago, and it hasn't changed.
Are we at the point?
I'm telling you, it takes 2.5 hits an inning for them to score.
Yeah, that's too many.
It is, and
It's not sustainable.
no, need to put more balls in play. The pitching has been good enough. I don't let last
For the
night
most part,
Don't
yeah.
let last night fool you. But
Even without McConaughey, which is obviously
just not barreling up enough balls.
So are we at the point already for you where you look at and go, hey, let's just try and figure something out by the conference tournament?
I don't. So what are we? It's going to be the 1st of April.
24
Tuesday.
games in.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think they're going to pitch it and pick it well enough to play small ball at this stage.
Yeah.
But they appear to be station to station. I was paying more attention to were they just hitting balls hard last night?
Yeah.
And they were.
Which you felt good about.
I did.
Yeah.
And you look up, and especially after they made it 12-6 with the solo home run, I'm like, I don't know. And you're getting a buzzsaw coming to town.
Yeah.
They get guys out, so it will be very difficult this weekend. It does. AK's right though. It's funny for this to be a non-con in the Big Ten when we just played 3 West Coast teams.
Right. Yeah. It's the schedule's pretty strange, but yeah, I don't know that they're gonna be.
They're in trouble.
I don't know if they're gonna be able to turn that thing around.
They're in trouble,
which is disappointing.
It's hard, especially. I mean, your preseason top 25.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a good team.
You just can't score runs.
It's supposed to be a good team.
Yeah, I know.
It's frustrating because I like it when Nebraska's good at baseball.
Me too.
It's enjoyable.
Yeah, me too.
It's a nice thing in the spring to kind of get out to Haymarket or come out here when they come up and play Creighton at TD or Chuck or whatever it's called now, Charles Schwab. And like it's a fun part of the spring, and it's sort of just I'm almost annoyed. Like I don't know if that's the right word, but because I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a Nebraska baseball diehard. I pay attention. I don't live and die by it. But
they're slugging 370.
Yeah, I think that's worse than Ozzie Smith's career slugging percentage.
You're hitting 246 as a team. I don't know.
I'm almost positive that's lower than Ozzie Smith's career slugging percentage.
Is this on the heels of our Ozzie Smith discussion yesterday?
Oh, yeah, it's not lower. Yes, it is on the heels of our Ozzie Smith discussion yesterday.
Yeah, he couldn't have slugged but 320.
328.
Yeah. He was Judy before she was punched.
How many career home runs does he have?
Ozzie Smith?
Yeah.
How many years did he play? He was 78.
He played 19 years.
Ozzie Smith had
I like this game.
19 years?
Yeah.
He probably had 19 home runs.
28.
It's not funny.
It's pretty funny.
He was the whiz.
It made national news when he hit one. I mean, literally.
For sure.
He had 7 different seasons where he did not leave the yard.
At this
7 with goose egg.
At this stage in the season, how many guys in Nebraska's lineup do you think should have more than 20 hits?
In 24 games? Most of them.
More than 20?
Should have more. You're telling me
No.
Like starters.
Yes.
How many starters?
How many guys
in 24 games should have less than 1 hit a game?
Yes.
All of them.
Okay. Do you know how many guys that they have on their roster that's 20 hits or more?
It's going to bum me out, isn't it?
Yeah.
5.
4.
Oh.
It's
rough.
Yeah.
That's less than 1 hit a game. Need you to do a little more than that.
It's just tough. It's really tough.
Did you anticipate this being a problem?
I did not. I did wonder, and you can go back and check the tape. I did wonder with Brunts. This was a couple weeks before the season started, and I snuck in a couple baseball questions. I didn't love the way that some of the guys hit in fall ball.
Mm-hmm. I remember you saying that.
But I did like the way guys like Max did have a productive offseason. So there was no real direct correlation. This
was our options versus answers conversation.
I did think they were going to have to go home to second and
play more station,
yeah,
or a little small ball.
Because I'm like, gosh, they got so much pitching depth.
They just don't make enough contact.
Situationally, they would be good, but
they have not been good.
It's literally they can't hit.
Well, and let's be honest, they're probably going to get swept this weekend.
Wash your mouth out, young man.
It's the number 5 team in the country. They're probably going to get swept.
Were you not taking a look at some of these scores last night?
I saw Florida State walk off Florida with a grand slam.
Yeah, was that in Gainesville?
I think so, but that completed the cycle for that kid.
I mean, Clemson struggled. Georgia struggled. I mean, it can happen. It's baseball.
Were they struggling against teams that are better than Nebraska?
Depends.
Because I mean that's kind of the other key part of that equation there.
I'm not talking to you right now. You're bringing up old stuff.
That's all right. We'll talk to Mitch Sherman coming up next. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Live, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DBM Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by may or may not be a plant in the audience from Coach Rhule, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic.
Yeah.
Mitch, what's going on?
Mitch the plant. That's it.
What's going on? No, not at all. In fact, I guess he wanted that question. He seemed like he was loaded up and ready to go on it. But at first, when he started, I didn't ask the question. He jumped in. I was wondering, okay, so who's this directed at here? Who made him? Who ruffled his feathers on this whole topic? I guess it was probably more stuff outside of Nebraska and just like snarky comments that were coming, which I think in this scenario you pretty much had to expect when he said what he said. Like, yeah, there was a way that Matt Rhule said that when he made the comment 2 weeks ago, but you don't really expect that people who just jump in on any subject in college football are going to quite get the nuance of how it was intended.
Yeah, it's interesting because when Ravi brought it, and I remember this show specifically because it got kind of volatile. And I told Rob, he goes, "There's something I want to get back to that Coach Rhule said yesterday that's getting under my skin." And we went to break and we came back and I was like, "What's that?" And it was the Raiola thing. And I was like, and I told him, I didn't get that.
You didn't realize it was a thing.
Yeah, I didn't get that, And I said, well, I mean, would we have felt better if he'd have said 218 or 226 or 260? Like, he could have number. Like, I honestly didn't get it. And then it turned to something. But clearly when he said, it was one of those times, Mitch, and you know him, right? It's one of those times where I felt like he used the kind of the disappointment more than the chastising or kind of wrist slapping, where I think it actually bugged him for whatever reason, but I thought it was powerful because it showed like this human component, because he said there's already enough ire out there. Like, I don't want to be part of it, right? Where there was something that happened in there with him that I thought it was powerful, man. It's one of the reasons why I like him as much as I do.
Right. I looking back though, I don't know that there was really any way to control it when he threw out a number. Like, it was going to be interpreted in a very remedial way by some people. You hear that number and you don't really care about how it was presented. Just the fact that it was put out there, and that's kind of rare for a college football coach to do. All of a sudden, people were going to run with it, and it's just. I think if you didn't expect that, I'm surprised, because he's generally very savvy. And he even said, everything I say is very marked, and there's a reason for why he says things in the way that he says things. But in this case, I think if he wanted to avoid what happened, then you probably just don't put a number out there. And if you just stuck to the Dylan is working on his body composition, and it's an important thing for him this offseason, then I don't know that you would have had the same conversation around that 2 weeks ago. And then there probably wouldn't have been the conversation yesterday, because it just would. And I was out there watching at Pro Day when he came over from practice and was getting ready to throw. And first thing I thought was, well, he looks fit. He looks really good. I think he looks stronger and in a little better shape than what we saw last season. I don't even know if that becomes something that we're talking about at all, if that whole conversation hadn't come up a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, Mitch, I'd like to think you're right, but I do and maybe I just run in different circles in terms of maybe I consume too much stuff online or whatever. Like, that's entirely possible. But I see a lot, people weren't making jokes about Dylan Raiola and his weight only after the number came out. Like, this is something that I'd heard about Raiola, and people would sort of make jokes or snarky comments sort of since he got on campus. And if you wore a sweatshirt that fit a certain way, people would make a comment, and then he wore something else. They're like, oh, he's in shape. Like it's sort of been a narrative for a while. And I guess like that sort of like, I agree that if you don't put a number on it, it probably never gets to this point. But I also think that people were sort of making it a thing no matter what.
Yeah, you're probably right. It goes back. Does it go back to his wardrobe? Is Dylan wearing like clothes from his sophomore year of high school that he should put away just because he's naturally gotten bigger?
Not 15 anymore, right?
Yeah, right. I don't know. Like I think this is all going to be something that is a big nothing when it gets to the season, because people are going to see him when they got the opportunity to see him this spring, whether that's on April 26th or it's in footage that comes out from practices. Like there's going to be an opportunity for media to go in tomorrow. And I think you're going to see that he's in pretty good shape. And like for all of the stuff that Dylan has taken on, and I mean, like becoming the quarterback that he is and going through the training regimen, all of the commitment that he's made, the work that he has to do in this area, I think is pretty minor. If we're talking about like his body composition and it comes down to just like reshaping some things and maybe being like 5 to 10 pounds less than what he was in December, like he can accomplish that. I don't want to say it's easy, but for somebody who's 19, 20 years old and like has the athleticism that he does and is ready to work as hard as he is, like this is not a big hill to climb for him. And I think he'll tackle it with no trouble. And he's going to look physically like the quarterback that Nebraska wants to play that position when the season's ready before the season's ready to go in August.
I know he loves this time of year because it's football, and it's football probably in as pure form as it's going to be, like during a calendar actually doing the sport. But I can't help but to think, as a guy that's kind of a culture builder and a leader and has kind of that presence around his peers, how much do you think he enjoys the opportunity to teach this staff, all the new guys on this staff, the way to do business that he once done at Nebraska from being a connectedness kind of standpoint, just getting a chance to coach the coaches?
Yeah, I think he definitely likes it. And I think you could hear when Mike Eckler visited with us this month that he picked up on how much Rhule likes that and how big of a part of the whole Nebraska football world it is. And when Phil Snow stood and talked to us and mentioned that Rhule held a 6-hour meeting where he was just going over all that is Nebraska football. We don't know what that meeting was about, but you don't have a 6-hour meeting if it's not something that you're really getting into.
When's the last time you went to a meeting where they had to bring in sandwiches or get some refreshments?
Oh, it's happened. But it's been a minute. So yeah, when I asked Rhule yesterday about the transitioning to all the new players and what it's like for him to have 29 players who are new to this team going through practice this spring. And he said, that's not a problem. Like I don't think there's a big learning curve. The guys have acclimated well. He said, the bigger thing for me probably is adjusting to all of the new coaches on staff. So that's definitely a big part of his focus. And I think he enjoys that. I think he's getting into it here. But by the time you get to camp in August, like you don't want to feel like that's something that's new at all.
Mitch, we went down this rabbit hole Well, actually, I went down this rabbit hole yesterday in terms of red zone scoring, and Nebraska needed to be the number that I came up with yesterday. Last night was, another 2.8 points in the red zone, right? Just slightly less than a field goal. And then I got to thinking about, all right, special teams and will the defense come back and break even and all these just things that football nerds do. I think I landed the plane on, if special teams is just efficient, right? If you're 15 and 19 in field goals and you can net 40 yards and punt and you get 8 yards punt, I'm not even talking about anything spectacular. Just go a season without a blocked punt. Have you allowed yourself to think, all things being equal, where Nebraska could be at the end of 2025? Or are we still taking these incremental steps in year 3?
Yeah, I've thought about it. I thought about it when Eckler came on board, and you looked through the numbers at Tennessee and what he'd accomplished. And the situation at Tennessee, honestly, he might have an easier time. Like, the challenge for him at Tennessee might have been greater to be the special teams coordinator than it is at Nebraska, because he had some other responsibilities on defense there that he's not going to have to take on at Nebraska. Nebraska has a big and capable defensive staff. They're not going to ask Eckler to, go coach outside linebackers for a week or to go help in that area. He can fully focus on special teams, and he's brought it up himself. I didn't know I think you'd have to really dig in to like see this evidence yourself. I didn't, and I'd heard the conversation that Josh Heupel at Tennessee didn't use starters on special teams, and then you heard Eckler actually say it in his time with the media the first time he visited with us a couple of weeks ago. So that's not going to be the case at Nebraska. Like, Nebraska's cool throwing out receivers and DBs and all kinds of starters on the line, even in the kicking game. So I think he's set up to not necessarily, you should start with that kind of efficiency that you discussed. Like, let's get to that point before you get greedy. But I think that their special teams can be like a net positive for them, not just like a break-even point. And if that happens and you plug that into the kind of football that Nebraska's played over the first 2 seasons for Matt Rhule, 13 games out of 25 decided by one score. That's where special teams comes in. That's where you change outcomes of games based on going from inefficient to efficient, or in an even better scenario, like above efficient, like highly efficient, effective, like game changing. Yeah, even if they can just be what you discussed, Damon, you're talking about what?
Yeah.
4 or 5 more wins over 2 years. So like a couple of wins next season that might not have happened if you were bad on special teams.
That's crazy. Mitch, it's kind of funny because we were having this conversation about sort of whether we like this year's roster better than last year's roster, right? And that's where this special teams and this whole conversation sort of started, because we go, well, we actually really liked last year's roster, and it sort of feels like they underachieved a little bit. And so I was getting into red zone conversions and touchdown rate in the red zone conversions and stuff like that. And we didn't even really get to like getting off the field on third down or converting third downs on offense or anything like that. And it kind of just landed on, after all that, what you just talked about. I'd be like, hey, if special teams just aren't horribly detrimental to your health, we're probably talking about an 8-win team last year.
So even with the offensive lulls and
all the other crap,
all
that
the
we get mad
other
about,
stuff that happened where they couldn't get off the field on third down, it's like
if you just get to not horrible on special teams, we're probably talking about a roster that achieved what we thought they were capable of.
Yeah, that's good context.
Yep. Iowa probably doesn't happen.
The number one game I said.
Yeah.
That's one. So then find me one other game, and I think you can do that, and then you're at 8 wins.
Yep.
I mean, Illinois is an easy one to point to.
I said right. Iowa doesn't even happen.
Yeah. Like there's – and so I just – I guess in that context, we did really like last year's roster, and I think we had more knowns. But I'm curious if you like how you feel about this year's roster sort of in comparison to what we saw last year. Like just the actual roster itself.
Yeah, I was having this conversation about the defense, so I'll kind of answer it with that. I think offensively, I'll start with the offense because I think there's a parallel. Looking at the wide receivers, and then looking at like Nebraska's linebacker group and probably the secondary and also the pass rushers on defense. So most of the defense, with the exception of like the interior line. What I think you have is a group that has more athleticism and big play potential. I think Nebraska can be a team that gets after the quarterback with its the traditional positions that rush the passer more effectively than what you had in 2024. So in that sense, I like the roster in a way better. Like it might be more comfortable, like the 2024 roster. You might like have more knowns, like less volatility. But I think if this coaching staff can come close to getting out of these guys like what they have to give, like if they can, you don't have to like 100% maximize your potential. That's not maybe realistic, but just like get a lot, go back to being efficient. If they can do that, I think specifically at wide receiver and then all over the defense, almost the entire defense, they have a lot of like high end talent that wasn't necessarily in place a year ago. And some of it was in place, but it just wasn't ready to produce in that way. Like Vincent Shavers and Willis McGahee on the defense. Like those guys were young pups last year and who could flash in a moment. And now I think they're ready to be like consistent big play producers.
When you look at the roster and the floor versus the ceiling, and we dropped you in at a practice, and you only get to watch one group, and you got to finish. You got to have that fill the rest of the spring. You get the coaches or coach, and the position group. Who are you going with?
And what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to like
only get that content for the rest of the spring.
Okay. So I'm trying to find something that's really intriguing. I would go to either the linebackers or the wide receivers. I think that at linebacker, the two guys that I just mentioned being a year older and adding McCullough, and then if Javen Wright's healthy, and I don't know, like that's going to be something we find out. I don't know. Maybe Damon. Like, what is he? I don't know. Is he able to practice right now?
I don't.
Yeah, but if he is, and you add him to that mix at linebacker with the freshman from last year getting a year older, and McCullough's in that group, and I put, I think there's some gray area about exactly where you put Williams Nwaneri, but to me he's a defensive lineman. Like he fits with Braden's group, no matter what front they're going in, if it's a 3 or 4, like him and Keona Davis are up there. So I'd be interested in that too, for sure. But if it's just a position group like linebacker on defense, and I really, really like Rob Dvorak.
Me too.
So I would probably go there, and you have Phil Simpson coaching the Jacks, so that's part of that position group. 2 coaches for 3 positions, which is
who would get
ideal.
So who would you? So you obviously with Simpson with Dvorak as opposed to Simpson with Terry when they're playing along the front.
I think that's going to change. I think he's going to swing both. I think he's going to go both directions. I think depending on like what down it is and what this, like, as they find out more about this defense and what his strengths are, like you may see Phil Simpson work more with Terry Braden. You may see him work more with Rob Dvorak. I don't know. That's a question for John Butler and what he envisions for this group. We've heard from a lot of other people about what they envision for this defense, but we haven't really heard it from John Butler. So next week we get the chance to ask him about that. Offensively, to answer the same question, it's the wide receivers. And because I'm very intrigued with the Keel Shorts, and when we get out there tomorrow, I want to go see him coach. Like we saw him in the Q&A part of his job, which is a small piece, and we shouldn't gather too much and assess him too much based on the fact that he was really, really smooth and in control when he answered questions in front of the media, because there's lots of guys who can do that. And, you still have to be able to coach. But I think based on what we heard there and what Dana Holgorsen says about him and what Matt Rhule has said about him, that he's like a potential game changer as an assistant coach on the field for this offense and for those wide receivers. And I go there on the offensive side because the fact that you can like forget about Ja'Cory Barney in that group. Like, oh, look at the transfers they brought in. Look at Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter and Hardley Gilmore. Like, that's really exciting. And they've got Cortez Mills now. Like, he can be a breakout freshman. Don't forget about Ja'Cory Barney, and don't forget about Quinn Clark.
The guys you mentioned, I don't even talk about. But I did put Barney in as my. I don't mention Hadley. I don't mention a lot of those guys. But
Barney's got to be.
That's for sure.
So there's a lot there, and I think that I hearing Buford talk yesterday, Marquise Buford talk about the receivers and going against them in the drills that they've done through the offseason, and then now in the first 2 days of practice. Like, it makes me even more intrigued with what that group might have.
Yeah.
Mitch, is any part of you gun shy about trying about sort of setting expectations for the wide receiver room after we sort of were disappointed in how that played out last year?
Well, we've done that. Yeah, we've gone down this road before. I think there's been a lot of seasons where you've walked into it and looked at the wide receivers and said, yeah, they've really got a lot there. You probably would find that on most college football teams. Like, if you just walked out and looked at the wide receivers, I think you're going to come away impressed. Like any Big Ten team or SEC team, like the wide receivers are going to be an impressive looking group, and you can convince yourself pretty easily that they're going to do a lot of damage. They're going to be productive. I tend to think that the talk is real with this group, and I might have said the same thing a year ago, and then decided that it was best to reassess when they got halfway through the season. But this is a different cast of characters. They've got a different coordinator. They've got a different assistant, position coach. They've got a quarterback now who has a year under his belt and can deliver the ball to them. I think they've got tight ends who can complement them. All of that factors into how effective the wide receivers are. Like the production of the wide receivers is not something that happens in a vacuum. Like, it has to involve all of those other pieces. And I think Nebraska's set up right now for this season to be solid in that area.
I'm just telling you guys, listening to his answer, Mitch. Because I didn't ever ask myself that question. I asked you, BC, and was that the only two so far about which position? Maybe. Oh, maybe for Tim. I think. I would start with linebackers if it was just going to be football. I agree with you. Like, I think that group is fascinating. Whether it's anybody that plays on the second level, I want to watch those guys. But, if I didn't, I may not even go watch any players. I think I would just hang around the staff. I would like to watch. I want to watch Coach Rhule teach coaches, and I want to watch those guys embrace, or whatever the word is, the challenge of having to be connected and come together in a fairly short amount of time to teach, to try to grow this thing going forward. Because I think he was very direct when he said, I want to say that again. It's to find out who can play.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be a directive that he's not only telling us, that he's told them about how he wants this spring to go from a teaching standpoint, right? Like, I want to see the coaches. That's who I'm captivated by.
Some of the maybe like an unexpected consequence of no spring game, when Rhule says we don't have a depth chart right now, like, you have to take that with a grain of salt if there's a spring game coming up, because you almost have to have a depth chart if there's a spring game. And I know they're still going to have a scrimmage, but it's not going to be open for the public, and you can shuffle guys in and out. You don't have to have a true number one offense in just a scrimmage on some Saturday. They really don't have to have a depth chart this spring. And there's a freedom there that maybe hasn't existed in previous springs. I was interested in what he said, and I wanted to ask him a follow-up, but we ran out of time yesterday. He mentioned going and listening to Dana Holgorsen go through, it was like some concepts or something. Like, go back and listen to the audio. But I wanted to ask Rhule about how Phil Snow and, having multiple coaches with coordinator experience on the defense and trusting Dana in the way that he does to be in charge, like the head coach of the offense, like how much of that allows him to be more even more of a walk around at practice, and like what his practice routine is like in comparison to not just the 2 years at Nebraska, but his other years in college. Like, it probably more resembles his time with the Panthers than anything else because of the staff size, in part because of the staff size, because there's 3 more coaches involved now. Not to mention the coaches who can do work on the field that don't have like the full-time titles. But not just that, but the experience that those coaches have too, and the trust that he has in them. Like, I think he's probably got a different routine every day at practice, and it allows him to. I wonder what he's doing differently minute by minute.
That's our guy, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic.
I got one more for you, Mitch. You're a baseball guy. I won't fast forward to opening day tomorrow, but I want to ask you about Nebraska. Obviously, a buzzsaw coming this weekend with Oregon State and that staff. What part of this, how this season unfolded through 24 games so far, surprises you the most?
I haven't watched enough of their games recently to say that I am in touch with all that's going on with this team, but it doesn't look like I expect from a Will Bolt team and a Rob Childress team that they would just fight more, that they wouldn't have a game like yesterday. And you've seen this in some other games where they're not ready to go at the start of the game. 3 errors in the first inning yesterday? They're down 5-0 in Manhattan. That doesn't bode well for just like the initial impression that I would have about how excited they are to come out and play every day. So that surprises me because they had momentum coming into this season, an experienced group coming back from a team that was successful in the Big Ten and made it to the postseason. So I would think that they would have a ton of energy. And I don't know if the injuries on the pitching staff have just like taken a lot of their juice away, but it shouldn't. Like, teams have injuries, and yeah, that was a tough one with your ace pitcher, but you still got guys out there who can play. So I'm surprised. I'm surprised by that they don't seem to have the kind of fight that I would expect from a team that's coached by those, because I know those coaches have it, and they've been doing this for a long, long time, and like the proof's in the pudding. Job done this year, then they're not. There is no excuse. But I'm surprised that they that we're seeing some of the things we have with like defensive breakdowns and early in game like deficits.
Mitch, do you have a Royals opening day ritual or anything you do, or what do you do?
Watch the game. I used to try to watch the game every year in the stadium, and I went a bunch of years on opening day, kind of like how I used to go to Vegas for the Super Bowl with my buddies, and like somehow like these traditions have gone away as my own kids have gotten older. I got a baseball practice to coach our first day outside of the spring tomorrow night, so I won't be able to make the trek to the K tomorrow. But you can bet I'll be sitting there watching it. No tradition other than making sure that I see 9 innings of baseball.
All right, Mitch, what kind of glove do you have?
I think it's a Rawlings. I have the same glove that I've had. I've had my glove for 20 plus years, maybe longer than that. It might even go back to like, I don't think I had this glove in high school, but it's brown, and it's I believe it's a Rawlings. I can send you a shot of it. It gets plenty of use, I'll tell you that, man. I've been wearing it out these last few weeks inside.
I have a 9.5-inch Nakona, and it's not going anywhere.
No, mine's not going anywhere either.
It is, and I may have finally got a Benning. It's just Zoe this time, my 6-year-old, that actually can swing a bat. So I'm
all right.
Pretty pumped around my house.
Man, the softball players have been sharing a facility with them in Gretna this winter. Yeah. They work. They need the boys all need to take a lesson on how hard and efficient they work in the cages.
Yeah, Mitch, full disclosure, I've lost a few bats that trying to hit fast pitch softballs. It is It is.
I'm just amazed with like I said, their efficiency. Like can they maybe get like 50% more swings in the same amount of time than the guys do?
Yes.
I don't know. Take some notes.
I'm on it.
That's our guy, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, we appreciate it as always. Enjoy opening day and coaching tomorrow outside for the first time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Coming up next, we'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Live here from Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DBM Ravi, Lulla. We are here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and we've been talking a lot about spring practice, but it's also time to spring into action on your financial goals, whether it's dreaming of a bucket list vacation or the perfect home renovation. A home equity loan or line of credit from Centris Federal Credit Union can help bring those plans to life. Leverage your home's equity so you can access the funds that you already have at lower interest rates than other options. Go to centrisfcu.org to talk to an expert to see what those options are and see if there's a good fit for you. Federally insured by NCUA and an equal housing lender. It's centrisfcu.org. You know, I like what Mitch was saying about sort of how he's interested in that wide receivers room, because unlike Shafe was a little gun shy about the receivers yesterday.
Mm-hmm. I get it. It's a hard position.
I'm very optimistic.
Are you?
I like that group a lot.
Well, good for you. It's got a good plot. I like the new Ravi. That's
positive.
What's a big step?
Optimistic.
Kind of putting yourself out. Well, no, you do have some takes. It's not that, but we're extrapolating.
Yeah, I think
because you only have one more year to get to the college football playoffs.
Yeah, I'm fine. I feel good.
Well, I
feel great. If I look at the state of the roster, I feel great about my prediction that they will make a college football playoff by next year. I feel terrific about it.
Good for you.
I look at and here's the thing. I really like that Coach Rhule's not hedging his bets with Dylan. He's out there. He's like, yeah, he looks really good. He's going to be really good. No hedging at all with Dylan. Not, we think he can be good one day or whatever. Hey, he's really good. He threw really well. He's going to be really good.
What's the popular show that it's on my algorithm and I've never seen it? It had the spinoff with the lawyer.
Suits?
No.
Different spinoff?
They push drugs, meth.
Oh, Breaking Bad.
Is that the dude? Isn't it Walter White that said no half measures?
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of how you feel about that?
Yeah. I'm all in on 2026 college football playoff. At least by then, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, listen, okay. I know that sounds crazy, but let's see what we're talking about.
I'm not going to say crazy.
What is
if you're guaranteed 4 spots, it's not crazy.
What have I always said about the college football playoff is 9 gets you in the conversation if you're in the SEC or the Big Ten, right?
Yes, you have.
Okay. So if we think last year that they were a tiny hair on my chinny chin chin away from being at 8 or 9 wins, and by that I mean 2.8 points per trip to the red zone, right? Or per game.
Yeah.
Right?
That was very nerdy of me. I apologize.
No, I love it. I love having the exact number.
I'm glad Mitch picked Iowa too, because that's the first game that came to mind.
I thought Iowa. I thought Illinois. That's one that comes. UCLA comes to the top of my head just because they didn't convert.
That Illinois, if I remember right, Nebraska had a chance to go up 3 scores with the ball, right?
100%. And then there was also the 50-50 ball that was a touchdown that got overturned.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about.
Which unfortunately I thought was the right call.
It was, but we're talking about a razor's edge here, right?
Yeah.
So if we think we're that close, or we're like that team was that close to 8 or 9 wins last year.
Do we have a meeting today?
Maybe. And we think, you and I both think, Mitch has said so, Brian has said so. We all think this is a better roster this year. And I think the benchmark is 9 to start having that conversation. It's not that crazy.
No.
Now, I'm not trying to get hype and expectations out of whack here. But when I say, hey, I think this is very much on the table still, that's why I think that. I'll double down on it.
Don't you think Nebraska's floor is higher this year?
That's an interesting question.
Well, most people think just the opposite. They thought last year's roster was safe.
I didn't think so. Starting a true freshman quarterback's never safe. It just isn't, no matter who the guy is.
You know, we were extrapolating about the defense and,
I think there's only one place, and we talked about it yesterday. I think there's only one place on this roster where I think the floor is lower, but I also think the ceiling is higher.
D-line productivity.
Yeah, I think the floor is lower. I think there's less known on the D-line this year than there was last year. I think the ceiling for that group as a disruptive group is higher. Last year was not a disruptive defensive line group. It just wasn't. I read out the stats yesterday when we were talking to Schaefer. Ty Robinson leads you with 7 sacks.
There's a difference now. Like I get it. Havoc plays matter. But if you're talking about controlling the line of scrimmage, they were pretty good.
They were very good, yes. But that's what I talk about a high floor. It's controlling the line of scrimmage. They did a really good job at that. When I'm talking about high ceiling, I want to control the line of scrimmage and add in havoc plays. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage the way they did last year. Although if Elijah Judy's at 300 pounds and Ryan Van Poppel's at 300 pounds, then I like my chances a little bit better, right? Especially if those guys are ready to go, which Rhule seems to think they are. So that's a little bit of a variable we don't really have right now and aren't going to have until August, because we're not going to see any of that at our Pro Bowl 7-on-7 stuff.
Yeah, we keep talking about all these linebackers, and we just realize you can't play them all. Like, you can't play Shavers, McCullough, McGahee, hyphenated last name.
Watson Trent.
Yep.
Javen.
I'm telling you, Stanger's going to be somewhere.
There's a lot of guys.
Like all those guys can't play
Not
at the same time. Right? I mean, you're waiting. Maverick Noonan was close before, the spring started.
Yeah.
If he can get healthy. I mean, you like Ochoa.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys.
It's like
there's a lot of guys.
Not everybody can start.
And we haven't even gotten to the defensive line where not all those guys can start either.
You talking about the interior?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, interior, and then I don't know how you really want to put it. Like, I consider
You're talking
Keona
about
Davis,
a 5-to-5 technique.
Yeah,
The 5 to the 5s.
So
yeah.
Keona, Elijah, Riley, Cam Lenhart, Enwinari. I sort of was putting Ochoa in that group.
I like Mason Goldman.
Mason Goldman. That's a guy that we've heard brought up a couple times. I mean, I'm at 6 right there. If we're still playing 3 down linemen, that's twice as many.
I know it.
Right? So we're having these discussions, and that's not even including, okay, sometimes you're going to count Shavers and McGahee sort of in that group.
As a fourth D lineman.
Yeah. So we're having this conversation about a group that's really deep, and I'll be honest, I like the ceiling of most of those guys better than the ceiling of a lot of the guys.
If I had to pick a position group, I'm going off-ball linebackers.
Okay.
You can have the D line.
Yeah.
I'll even give you the Jacks.
Shavers and McGahee and McCullough.
I don't know about Shavers now.
Okay. So McGahee, McCullough.
Yeah.
I get those, you get Shavers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll spend time with the second level guys.
I mean, I've been on a D-line kick, so
they're fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of parts. And I think Dvorak's a great teacher. Now, I'm not going to concede you get Simpson all the time. So you give him to me half the week, you get him the other half.
That's fine. But I get the guys. I get the guys the whole time.
Well, sometimes they're going to be off ball.
No, I get the guys the whole time. You get Simpson half the week, I'll take him half the week. You get Shavers all the time. I get McGahee and
That's
McCullough
fine, because I want to watch him teach anyway. That's the thing that fascinates me the most.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to spend time with Coach Rhule for stories or fun. I want to learn how
he's teaching.
Yes.
Yeah. I just want to see what it looks like.
He's got a lot of smart guys. And sometimes that takes some time.
Because I'm actually relatively high on the offensive line.
Yeah, which is...
I think it's a pretty good group. I like Justin Evans. I like Latovsky. I like Spindler.
Yeah.
I thought Gatula played well. Gatula played well last year and wasn't ready.
You like Sledge?
I like Sledge. I like the potential of Pritchett.
I think you liked Maciejczak at some point.
I like Maciejczak, yeah. So I'm at 7 guys right now. I haven't brought up Corcoran or Prohaska yet.
You know a guy that I like on the interior this year that they recruited was Petchak.
Yeah.
Man.
Which he's going to be a couple years down the line.
I know.
But
I just reminded me of when I...
Maciejczak and Petchak, the names are kind of...
Yeah, and like style of play.
I haven't brought up Preston Tamua. I haven't brought up Grant Bricks.
You haven't brought up Lefotu.
I haven't brought up Sulafotu. Like, there's
missing the spring, but
a lot of dudes there a lot of which we already have some known commodities on. I got to 4 known commodities before I even had to start projecting with Elijah Pritchett. And
I'm not going to knock you for wanting to be with D-line.
So, like,
Are you surprised nobody's taking the DBs?
I think people are scared. I think it's intimidating.
It's not.
No. I mean, like so if you're not a coach and you're a guy like me, you're in the media, you've watched a lot of football.
You just think it's too much going on?
There's a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Right. There's a lot going on. I also think if you don't understand necessarily, and I'm putting myself in this category, if you don't totally understand what the coverages are supposed to be, it's hard to tell who's playing well. Like if you're sitting there and like you're a defensive coordinator, so you're calling stuff and you know what it's supposed to look like.
It would infuriate me when we would single out these DBs last year, and I'm like, you're
like, he was actually covering for this guy because this guy blew the assignment.
That's not his fault.
Or we would be like, hey, the D line's not playing well. When it's like, hey, they did their job, but the secondary guy didn't come down and fit the run.
You have to fit off of that.
So there's I feel like on a defensive line, I can watch guys win one-on-one and know, hey, there's something there. I don't know if they're doing what they're supposed to in the scheme, but I can see enough one-on-one and are they beating their guy that I can make some extrapolations there. I think that the secondary can be a little intimidating, especially with that number of guys there.
Do you think they can get enough guys? Because I want to get to Stanford.
I do too. We can do that here coming up next.
Do you think they have enough guys that can fill out how he wants to fill the day out with media and old guys? Because I'm not so sure.
Maybe.
How many former players do you think want to play 7-on-7?
Oh, probably not a lot. I wouldn't think.
I don't have a good number.
More alumni than media, though.
I haven't. I know guys that would say no right out of the chutes.
I think me and Rico are the only ones that want to go out there and play right now. Yeah.
I'd be curious.
I'd go out and play tomorrow.
Because, you have whole events planned.
I just want to sling it. Let's go. We'll be back. We're at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Don't forget, you can come here all during Lent, get your fish and chips, or if you're a heathen like me, get that Reuben and get your Reuben game right.
You heathen.
And make sure you get over here to Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Live. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. He
had a lot going on yesterday.
He did.
He
had a lot on his mind, it seemed like. Like there's a lot of things he wanted to talk about, get out there. I think it is, I chalked part of it up, and maybe mistakenly so. I chalked part of it up to Pro Day. Like I chalked part of it up to there being a lot of people around.
He kind of slid in the fact that he had to adjust class times.
The schedule to make sure that Dylan could throw.
Yeah, because you know what? You weren't missing class.
Yeah. Well, and there's rules. It is, but there's also rules around how often he can throw too, right?
Yeah.
Because it counts against practices versus doesn't count against practices. And that's not just a Dylan thing. That's to help out the receivers to make sure they're catching balls from a guy that they're used to and have timing with, right? So I do think there was a lot going on. I also, he's hosting 28 NFL teams at the University of Nebraska. What have we heard all along about Coach Rhule? He wants to represent the University of Nebraska well. He wants everybody to know what a great place this is. That's when my wife has people over for like a dinner party or Christmas dinner or whatever, I see the preparation and whatever. And those are people that already like us. Those are people that we already know.
Let alone
people that you're trying to impress, right? So you kind of extrapolate the stress and some anxiety that goes into hosting something at your house and say, okay, not only do I have that, but it's 28 teams that maybe aren't inclined to like me necessarily. I don't really know. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. It seems like he's got good relationships, but there's probably a lot of people he doesn't know there, being out of the NFL game for a few years. Plus, you've got the stakes of the future of these young men being at least somewhat dependent on the impression that they get from the place that you came from, and the future of future generations of these classes being dependent on how these NFL scouts and teams feel about Coach Rhule and the job he does and the place that he coaches at. So I do think there was a lot going on for him that, like, it's not just, oh, hey, let's just get Jamal Banks out there and have him run a 40 and see what Isaac Gifford runs. Like, there's a lot more going on for Coach Rhule through that process than just, oh, they're going to go out there and run some drills and it'll be great. And then you've got some questions that everyone's answered. Like, where's Tommi Hill? How come he wasn't there?
Yeah, wow.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a guy that probably needs to run at some point.
And surprised, not surprised, but maybe he's got legit. I don't know enough to even
I don't either.
sow the seeds of doubt.
Of anything, right? But we just don't know where he was.
It's always a crapshoot.
That's a thing that, like, I think most people probably expected him to be there yesterday to run and to test for scouts, because I think there's a lot of people that think he's got an NFL, at least going to have a shot in an NFL future.
With each passing day, it
gets harder and harder.
Yeah.
At some point, you got to show up.
It does. Kind of like Russell Wilson and
going to the Giants.
You worry about my locker room.
What happened?
You worry about what's going on in Pittsburgh with that receiving core? How about Winston and Russ? Sounds like a lot of fun.
Those two, I think, are going to hate each other.
Somebody's going to have to go sit their ass down and be quiet somewhere.
Russell Wilson.
So
stop talking.
Here's the problem is I worry about your locker room because there's something to ruin. There's nothing to ruin with the Giants. It already is ruined.
That's not a plan, though.
No, it's just, hey, let's see what happens. Although they're sort of doing the thing I advocated for, which was to take some flyers. I wouldn't advocate for those guys, but the plan in general.
So you brought Dable back for this?
Well, I wouldn't have personally. But my point is, like with the quarterback room, where I was saying, hey, instead of paying Daniel Jones again or whatever, go and give take some flyers on a few guys cheaply and see what happens. Because you know what Daniel Jones is. You don't need any more of that in your life. You don't know, like, again, I wouldn't choose those guys that they ended up riding with.
Watch him blow up in Indianapolis, and you're going to owe me an apology.
Who?
Daniel Jones.
I mean, blow up or win the job? Because I think he could win the job over Anthony Richardson.
I think quietly it was one of the best off-season additions in football.
I think it's an improvement for Indianapolis for sure.
They will be in position to win that division.
I miss a low bar, but yeah. Maybe it's a bad division.
I mean, you just talked about the dude like he was me taking over at quarterback, and now it's a low bar. Like, which is it?
Hey, you've got some history there. You're good.
No,
good to go.
I ain't good. Trust me on that.
Well, speaking of ain't good, I mean, Stanford letting go their head coach in late March.
Yeah, that
happened in a hurry.
Well, it has behavior written all over it, right?
Well, yeah, because they had the investigation about like inappropriate comments and not taking and like some bullying of staffers and stuff like that. Like it's one thing. I don't know why I differentiate when
who's coaching.
Nobody right now. It certainly sounded like Andrew Luck made that decision, though.
I love that. It was kind of weird to see a GM fire a coach
in college.
Yeah.
I sort of wondered when we started having these GM roles, because there's going to be some places where the GM has that power.
Oh, yeah.
Nebraska's not one of them, like, mind you. So I think let's just put that to bed. Yeah. Like, Matt Rhule's in charge, guys. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But there's going to be some places where it's going to go athletic director, GM,
where the guy in
coach.
The seat is why they get the guy that he is the boss of.
100%.
Gotcha.
Whereas, like, I think you're going to start to see certain places where the AD kind of will represent the president of the organization. The general manager will be the general manager, and the head coach will be hired by the general manager.
How many of these guys are leaving?
What do you mean?
And I mean, listen, they were 6 and 18, I think, under Taylor.
The Stanford guys, the players.
But it is the end of March.
Yeah, there's going to be some guys, and I don't imagine there's no good football players on that roster. Right?
No, that's a good point.
Like, there's going to be some guys on that roster that people want. I already saw an article about Notre Dame because they know they can get in.
Just a natural fit.
Yeah, I mean, academically it's not going to be a problem.
Yeah, we got a lot to catch up on. We got Stanford. We got Nebraska's got an assistant basketball coach opening.
We haven't even talked about Richard Pitino to Xavier. We haven't talked about
coaching in the same conference as your dad.
We haven't even talked about Villanova still open, and apparently nobody wants that job.
Does anybody want to be in Virginia?
Is Kevin Willard staying at Maryland? Is he going? What's going on here? Is he holding his administration hostage? What's happening?
Well, he is the guy that pays us, right? Ain't that what
he do be paying us, which is why we'll be back tomorrow here on Hurrdat Sports Live.